Chapter 18. Genius 1 Second. Remember Love Go Divided by Shao? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. After leaving the assembly hall, Qin Nan and Qin Tian went straight to the patriarch's courtyard. Baidu search AI Go female sign Shao say www.aichuxs.com. As soon as they stepped into the courtyard, Tai San, who had been waiting for a long time, immediately asked, "Big brother, what's the situation?" Qin Tian smiled and said, "Little San, I gave birth to a good son. If it wasn't for Qin Nan, I'm afraid that today's outcome would be unpredictable." Even though Qin Tian had already seen through this matter, he still couldn't help but sigh when it was brought up. Tai San's heart relaxed, and he immediately looked at Qin Nan. His face reddened and he said embarrassedly, "Young master, I was just anxious. Please don't take my words to heart." "It's fine, Uncle San. I know you're doing this for father's sake." Qin Nan smiled faintly. Qin Nan had always respected Tai San. Therefore, no matter how much Tai San insulted him, Qin Nan would never blame him. At this time, Qin Tian suddenly thought of something. He looked at Qin Nan with a solemn face and said, "Nan, although Qin Tieba and the others didn't succeed this time, the situation isn't too good. In 5 days, the Xianling clan will arrive and accept Qin Chongkong as their disciple. My position as patriarch will definitely be lost." After pausing for a moment, Qin Tian continued, "This time, you've offended them. They definitely won't let this matter go. Rather than waiting for their revenge, why don't you quickly pack up, and we'll fly far away." After hearing this, Tai San's face also became serious. He nodded his head, obviously agreeing with Qin Tian's words. Although Qin Nan had broken through to the 4th layer of body tempering realm in a short period of half a month, and had even glimpsed the realm of one with the saber, Qin Nan's martial spirit was only 1st grade Huang rank. He definitely couldn't become a disciple of the Xianling clan and compare to Qin Chongkong. When a large clan like the Xianling clan recruited disciples, the most important thing was the level of their martial soul. Qin Nan didn't hesitate in the slightest. He shook his head and said, "Father, I won't leave. If I leave now, I'm afraid I won't be at ease for the rest of my life." "Don't worry, father, third uncle, I have my own plans. Don't worry." When Qin Tian and Tai San heard this, they looked at each other and hesitated. Given the current situation, how could they not be worried? However, when they thought of Qin Nan's character, both of them shook their heads at the same time. Even if they wanted to persuade him, they couldn't. Not only that, the reason why Qin Tian didn't persuade him was because he had a faint feeling that his son might have a powerful trump card that he didn't know about. Because Qin Nan was not a reckless person. Qin Nan looked at the two and thought for a while. In the end, he didn't tell them about Fang Rulong. Originally, when Qin Nan found out from Tai San that Qin Tieba and the others wanted to impeach Qin Tian from the patriarch position, he was prepared to release the divine battle spirit to reverse the situation and defeat Qin Chongkong. However, when he heard that Qin Chongkong had become the Xianling clan's chosen disciple, Qin Nan restrained his killing intent and didn't release the divine battle spirit. This was because this made Qin Nan think of Fang Rulong from the Fang clan. Baidu search AI male sign Go female sign Shao Shua www.aichuxs.com. Fang Rulong had awakened a 6th grade Huang ranked martial spirit, but the Fang clan still hadn't made it public. What was the reason behind this? Through this doubt, Qin Nan had a faint feeling that the Fang clan would make a big move during the Xianling clan's disciple recruitment 5 days later. As for not telling this news to Qin Tian and Tai San, it was because he didn't want Qin Tian and Tai San to worry too much. Furthermore, even if the Fang clan had some kind of bad plan, it wasn't a problem for Qin Nan. This was because Qin Nan's trump card was the divine battle spirit, which had now reached 7th grade Huang rank. Just like what Qin Nan had said to Fang Shui, he, Qin Nan, was not afraid of Fang Rulong at all. Thinking of this, Qin Nan's heart recovered its calmness. After bidding farewell to Qin Tian and Tai San, he returned to his courtyard. On the way back to the courtyard, Qin Nan encountered a rather interesting matter. The servants and disciples of the Qin clan, who usually disdained him, took the initiative to greet Qin Nan, fawning over him. Qin Nan smiled in his heart. It seemed like the matters in the conference hall had been discovered by these servants and disciples. However, Qin Nan didn't pay attention to them. These people had previously mocked and ridiculed him. It was already too late for them to repent now. After returning to the courtyard, Qin Nan quickly entered his room and took out the dozens of jade bottles. He took out the body-tempering pills one by one and piled them into a pile. The spiritual qi was dense. Baidu search AI male sign go female sign xiao shua www.aichux.com, a total of 500 body-tempering pills. I wonder what level the divine battle spirit will reach. Qin Nan took a deep breath. His face was filled with excitement. According to the previous situation, 10 body-tempering pills were enough to raise the divine battle spirit by 1 grade. Then wouldn't these 500 body-tempering pills be enough to raise the divine battle spirit to the legendary Tian rank? Of course, Qin Nan also knew that this idea was too exaggerated. As long as the divine battle spirit could reach the Xian rank, Qin Nan would be satisfied. Qin Nan collected his thoughts and sat down cross-legged. 7 yellow lights began to flicker as the humanoid divine battle spirit floated up from his back. It stood in mid-air and emitted an imposing aura, as domineering as before. Once the divine battle spirit was released, Qin Nan immediately extended his hand and swallowed the body-tempering pills one by one. As the body-tempering pill entered Qin Nan's body, the same as the last time, the divine battle spirit unleashed an invisible suction force, sucking the medicinal energy into his body. 1 pill, 4 pills, 7 pills, 9 pills. When he picked up the 10th body-tempering pill, Qin Nan nervously opened his mouth and swallowed it. He carefully observed the changes in the divine battle spirit. 1 breath, 30 breaths. After waiting for a long time, Qin Nan felt slightly disappointed. His face revealed a bitter smile. Things were indeed not that easy. After swallowing 10 body-tempering pills, the divine battle spirit still did not level up. Let's try again and see how many pills I need. Qin Nan quickly calmed down. He was still full of confidence as he swallowed the body-tempering pills one by one. However, the result this time caused Qin Nan's heart to sink to the bottom. 30 pills, 80 pills, 170 pills, 350 pills. After swallowing 490 pills in a row, the divine battle spirit behind Qin Nan still did not have any reaction. The medicinal energy of the body-tempering pills was like a stone sinking into the ocean, disappearing without a trace within the divine battle spirit. It seems like it really isn't that easy. The bitter smile on Qin Nan's face became even more pronounced. However, he quickly adjusted his state of mind. The fact that the divine battle spirit was able to rely on pills to level up was already extremely heaven-defying. There was no need to ask for more. There are still 10 pills left. I'll swallow them all and see if I can level up. Qin Nan clenched his teeth. He grabbed the remaining 10 body-tempering pills and swallowed them all in one go. This time, it did not disappoint him. After the divine battle spirit absorbed the medicinal energy of the 10 body-tempering pills, the entire divine battle spirit suddenly trembled. Immediately after, a yellow light shone from the top of the divine battle spirit. At this moment, the aura of the divine battle spirit suddenly became stronger and more tyrannical. After swallowing 500 body-tempering pills, the divine battle spirit finally broke through to the 8th grade Huang rank. However, this was far from it. Just when Qin Nan's heart was filled with joy, he saw the outline of a pair of eyes slowly appear on the head of the divine battle spirit. Compared to the other parts of the divine battle spirit, the outline of the eyes was much clearer. It was as if the eyes of the human-shaped divine battle spirit were about to open in the midst of the chaos. This, Qin Nan's face was filled with astonishment. He was keenly aware that when the divine battle spirit underwent a change, his eyes also underwent a change. Originally, when his cultivation reached the fourth layer of body-tempering realm, Qin Nan's eyesight was extremely good. However, now, his eyesight had increased by at least 10 times. Now, with a single glance, Qin Nan could clearly see every blade of grass and every tree within a radius of 10 meters. He could even clearly see the turbid water in the pond. My eyesight actually increased? A thought popped up in Qin Nan's mind. He suddenly thought of the changes in the divine battle spirit's eyes, and his heart was once again filled with astonishment. When the outline of the divine battle spirit's eyes appeared, Qin Nan's eyesight had undergone a change. Doesn't this mean that when the divine battle spirit leveled up, it could affect his body and bring about other abilities? Not only can it increase its grade by consuming pills, the increase in my perception from last time is most likely related to the divine battle spirit. Now it can even affect the body. This divine battle spirit is simply too frightening. Qin Nan sucked in a few mouthfuls of cold air. His surging emotions were completely unable to be suppressed. However, at this moment, a thought suddenly popped up in Qin Nan's mind. With such a frightening divine battle spirit, what level would he be able to reach in this lifetime? At this moment, Qin Nan felt that his knowledge was too shallow. In Qin Nan's view of the world, a martial king was already the strongest that he knew of. As for the realms above martial king, he had never come into contact with them, so he wasn't too clear about them. The divine battle spirit, there's nothing it won't fight, there's nothing it won't win. Qin Nan suddenly thought of the phrase in his mind, and couldn't help but mutter to himself. After a while, he suddenly came to a realization, and his eyes emitted a burst of light. With such a powerful martial spirit, how can I imagine my future? I want to join the Xianling clan. Only by joining the Xianling clan can I truly understand this world, and step into a wider world. Then I can defeat all my enemies. Chapter 19. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by small? We provide you with interesting novels to read. In the following days, the news of the arrival of the Xianling clan was spread throughout the entire Linshui city. This news undoubtedly caused the disciples of the Qin family and the Fang family to boil with excitement. Each and every one of them started to wake up early and work late at night, cultivating with all their might, hoping to improve their cultivation before the arrival of the Xianling clan. Not only that, the higher-ups of the Qin family and the Fang family were also nervously preparing for something. However, all of this had nothing to do with Qin Nan. After Qin Nan had awakened his 8th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, he did not slack off at all and entered into a tedious and boring cultivation. This cultivation lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, but Qin Nan did not move at all, as if he was a madman. The spirit qi could only be seen condensing into large serpents that continuously drilled into Qin Nan's body, producing a series of muffled explosive sounds. It was as if there was a force quietly exploding within his body. After 3 days and 3 nights of cultivation, combined with his 8th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, Qin Nan's current aura had become incomparably sharp, emitting a force in all directions, faintly reaching a point of condensation. Qin Nan's eyes sprang open all of a sudden. His eyes flickered with a mystical glow. The 4th layer of body-tempering realm is to temper the inner organs, increasing the flexibility of the inner organs by a level. Then the 5th layer of body-tempering realm is to increase the strength of the skin, flesh, bones, and inner organs by a level, making them even stronger. If one reaches the 5th layer of body-tempering realm, one would be completely invulnerable to weapons, water, and fire. At this moment, many of the doubts in Qin Nan's mind were quietly solved, as he suddenly saw the light. Of course, the reason why he was able to understand so easily was because of the 8th grade Huang-ranked divine battle spirit, as well as Qin Nan's crazy cultivation for the past 3 days and 3 nights. Only after accumulating enough strength did he succeed. Now, I'll break through to the 5th layer of body tempering realm in one go. Qin Nan let out a roar as his aura skyrocketed, while the divine battle spirit floating behind him emitted a stronger and deeper absorption force. At this moment, Qin Nan's body seemed to have turned into a huge whirlpool, sucking in the spiritual qi from all directions. Under the impact of this boundless spirit qi, Qin Nan's entire body began to tremble uncontrollably. Boom! Boom! The sounds of explosions continued to come from Qin Nan's body. Qin Nan gritted his teeth and endured the pain caused by the huge amount of spirit energy washing over his body. His eyes were scarlet and he was like an angry beast. He refused to lower his head, refused to let go, and didn't even say the word pain. 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours. After 5 hours had passed, Qin Nan's body suddenly shuddered. The pain in his body completely disappeared like a tide, and was replaced by an extremely powerful force that surged from all directions in his body. This is the 5th layer of body tempering realm. Qin Nan stood up, his face filled with joy. He couldn't help but clench his fists as he felt the surging power in his body. If the 4th layer of body tempering realm was a small transformation of the body tempering realm, then the 5th layer of body tempering realm was the foundation of the 4th layer of body tempering realm, stepping into another level. At this level, not only was the body strengthened, the strength, the 6 senses, and so on had all climbed to another level. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that if Qin Nan were to fight with Qin Changkong now, he would only need to use half of his strength to completely defeat his opponent. Nan Air. At this moment, Qin Tian walked in and saw Qin Nan's face filled with joy. He couldn't help but smile and ask, "What's wrong? Did something good happen?" Tai San, who was following behind Qin Tian, was also slightly suspicious. He instinctively sized up Qin Nan. He felt that the current Qin Nan was different from usual, but he didn't know what was different about him. Suddenly, Tai San came to a realization and exclaimed, "You broke through to the 5th layer of body tempering realm?" When Qin Tian heard this, he immediately sized up Qin Nan. Even though he was the #1 expert of the Qin family, his face couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. Qin Nan really broke through to the 5th layer of body tempering realm. It had only been half a month since the martial spirit awakening. Previously, breaking through to the 4th layer of body tempering realm was already shocking enough. Now, he actually broke through to the 5th layer of body tempering realm? This was simply too shocking. Qin Nan looked at the two's expressions and immediately explained, "Father, third uncle, I had a fortuitous encounter in the Longhu mountain range because I obtained a stalk of spiritual herb of heaven and earth. A while ago, I broke through to the 4th layer of body tempering realm, but had yet to completely refine it. In the past few days, I relied on the remnants of the herb to break through to the 5th layer of body tempering realm." This explanation was something that Qin Nan had thought of long ago. It was very reasonable. When Qin Tian and Tai San heard this, their expressions softened, and they didn't suspect anything. If not for this stalk of spiritual herb of heaven and earth, the two of them would never have believed that Qin Nan's martial spirit was only a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. Thinking of this, Qin Tian and Tai San were somewhat envious of Qin Nan's good luck. To be able to help someone break through to the 5th layer of body tempering realm in half a month, this stalk of spiritual herb of heaven and earth must be exceptionally precious and extremely rare. "That's right, father, third uncle, why are you looking for me today?" Qin Nan changed the topic and asked. Qin Tian slapped his head as he recalled the matter. He couldn't help but laugh as he scolded, "Of course we're looking for you. Tomorrow is the Xianling clan's disciple recruitment ceremony. The entire Qin family and Fong family are going crazy with work. You're the only one who's secretly hiding in the courtyard, cultivating as if nothing has happened. Tai San interrupted with a smile. Therefore, young Master Qin Nan, the patriarch and I came here today mainly to ask you, do you plan to participate in the Xianling clan's disciple recruitment ceremony? Participate, of course I'm participating. Qin Nan said without hesitation. Father, third uncle, you can rest assured now. With my cultivation, even if I can't become a disciple of the Xianling clan, there won't be anyone in the younger generation who can harm me. Upon hearing this, Qin Tian and Tai San both nodded their heads. A fifth-layer body-tempering realm cultivator, even in the Qin family and Fong family, would be a peak existence. No one could compare to him. In terms of cultivation, Qin Nan probably wouldn't be a match for him. Qin Tian let go of the worry in his heart and said, this time, the Xianling clan's disciple recruitment ceremony is jointly organized by the Qin family and the Fong family. It's divided into 2 rounds. In the first round, the Fong family and the Qin family will each select 30 disciples. They will draw lots and compete with each other. The top 5 winners will be able to participate in the second round. The second round, as you've probably guessed, is to release your martial spirit and check its grade. As for how many people will be selected in the end, the Xianling clan hasn't revealed it yet. So that's how it is. Qin Nan nodded his head. He suddenly thought of something and asked, then where will it be held? The location of the ceremony will be in the Fong clan, Qin Tian said, not thinking much of it. Qin Nan couldn't help but wrinkle his eyebrows. The disciple recruitment ceremony was held in the Fong family. Although there wasn't anything special about it, the fact that the Fong family had hidden Fong Rulong made Qin Nan even more certain that the Fong family was definitely plotting something. In all likelihood, the Fong family wanted to take advantage of this disciple recruitment ceremony to make a move against the Qin family. After Qin Nan understood the reason behind this, his heart was incomparably calm. He didn't have the slightest bit of worry and didn't say anything to warn Qin Tian and the others. Even if the Fong family was plotting something, there was nothing to be afraid of. That's right, Qin Nan, I heard from the patriarch that you used the Thunder Crash saber technique to defeat Qin Changkong? At this moment, Tai San suddenly opened his mouth and asked. That's right, Uncle San, Qin Nan replied. That's great. It just so happens that Tai San also cultivates the Thunder Crash saber technique and has a lot of insights from it. Now I'll give it to the young master to look at. I hope it can help the young master. Tai San smiled and took out an ancient book from his bosom. Hearing this, Qin Nan was shocked. He obviously didn't expect Tai San to also cultivate the Thunder Crash saber technique. You brat, quickly accept it. Your third uncle has been immersed in the Thunder Crash saber technique for dozens of years and has reached the realm of one with the saber. Now that your third uncle has taken out his insights, it's really a bargain for you, Qin Tian said from the side. One with the saber? The shock on Qin Nan's face became even stronger. However, he didn't hesitate and accepted the ancient book. After that, he bowed to Tai San and said solemnly, Thank you, third uncle, for your kindness. Qin Nan can't thank you enough. In the world of martial arts, the insights and experiences of experts regarding martial skills were extremely precious. Because of these experiences, one's martial skills would be even more profound and even reach a higher realm. Therefore, this gift from Tai San was really precious. Tai San didn't hesitate and said, Young master, your martial skill talent has been outstanding since you were young. No one in the city can compare to you. You are just right for my cultivation note. There is only 1 day left until the Xianling clan's disciple recruitment ceremony. I will stay here for the time being. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Okay. Only after a slight hesitation, Qin Nan immediately agreed and expressed his thanks. Tai San personally came forward to guide Qin Nan. This was Tai San's kind intention. He hoped to make Qin Nan even stronger during the disciple recruitment ceremony. Qin Nan had to accept this kind intention. "Father, third uncle, I won't bother with you guys for now." Qin Nan greeted them and immediately went to the big rock in the courtyard. He started to concentrate on flipping through the ancient book. His expression was as if he was intoxicated. Qin Nan had always been very interested in martial skills, even more so than cultivation. When Qin Tian and Tai San saw this scene, they glanced at each other. Their eyes were filled with helplessness, but more than that, they were gratified. Even if Qin Nan had a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, so what? Qin Nan had the heart to become stronger and the perseverance to become stronger. This point was already very precious and gratifying. In the following time, Qin Nan was completely immersed in the ancient book. Sure enough, as Qin Tian had said, Tai San had at least reached the one with the saber realm. The various comprehensions made Qin Nan's eyes light up. He felt as if he had seen the light at the end of the tunnel. Tai San stood in the courtyard and looked at Qin Nan from time to time. His heart was filled with satisfaction. However, at this time, a thought suddenly popped into Tai San's mind. How much can Qin Nan comprehend in one day? Immediately, Tai San laughed involuntarily. Even if Qin Nan's martial skill talent was strong, it was impossible for him to make any progress in one day. Time passed unknowingly. Qin Nan was still immersed in the ancient book. After 3 hours had passed, the color of the sky suddenly changed. Countless dark clouds gathered together, causing the sky to turn pitch black and solemn. In the sky, the sound of muffled thunder could be faintly heard. Immediately after, the sky was like a gate opening. Countless raindrops instantly poured down with a majestic aura. Damn, this weather, how can it change so quickly? Tai San couldn't help but curse. However, he was also helpless. He could only hurriedly shout at Qin Nan, "Qin Nan, Qin Nan." It wasn't that Tai San wanted to disturb Qin Nan. However, in this stormy weather, thunder, rain, etc., would all disturb a person's cultivation. It would be extremely disadvantageous for a person who was immersed in comprehension, and could even cause harm. As Tai San shouted, his gaze subconsciously looked at Qin Nan. With this glance, Tai San felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His brain was buzzing, and the violent rain and thunder in the sky were instantly thrown to the back of his mind. He only saw the heavy rain pouring down from the sky. When it hit the ground, it emitted a pa-pa-pa sound and water splashed everywhere. Qin Nan held the ancient book and flipped through it page by page. It was as if he had entered a state of bewitchment. He was completely unaware of his surroundings. On Qin Nan's body, there seemed to be an invisible barrier. The heavy rain falling from the sky suddenly stopped 10 inches away from Qin Nan's head. It was blocked by the invisible barrier. The 10 inches around Qin Nan's body seemed to have become a pure land that was impervious to fire and water. Chapter 20. Genius 1 Second. Remember love to go, Xiao? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Tai San had practiced the Thunder Crash saber art for dozens of years and had comprehended the realm of one with the saber. He was very familiar with saber intent. This kind of saber intent could only be grasped when one had comprehended one with the saber to a certain depth and reached the greater success stage. Qin Nan had only just glimpsed the realm of one with the saber. In just a short day, he had actually reached such a level? How terrifying was Qin Nan's comprehension ability! Tai San took a deep breath and looked deeply at Qin Nan. This time, he didn't call out to Qin Nan. With the protection of saber intent, the rain was unable to enter. The surrounding thunder also had a great shielding effect. It was impossible to disturb Qin Nan, who was currently in a mysterious state. If young Master Qin Nan's martial spirit was a bit higher, how great would his achievements be? Tai San thought to himself. When he thought of Qin Nan's first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, he couldn't help but sigh. No matter how good Qin Nan's martial skill talent was, his martial spirit's grade was too low. In the Kanglan continent, it was destined that he wouldn't have great achievements. Time quickly passed. The sky was still raining heavily, and the thunder continued to rumble. However, at this moment, in Qin Nan's courtyard, there was no sound of rain or thunder. Instead, there was a buzzing sound. These sounds were emitted by the saber intent on Qin Nan's body. It was as if a saber was vibrating at an unimaginable speed. The saber intent on Qin Nan's body became thicker and stronger. After 14 hours had passed, there was an explosion. The saber intent that enveloped Qin Nan's body dispersed in all directions. Qin Nan also woke up from his bewitched state. Baidu search Love Kago, Xiao Shua www.aichux.com. The sky is about to brighten. Qin Nan subconsciously raised his head and saw that the sky was starting to brighten. He could not help but be startled. It turned out that he had been immersed in this ancient book for such a long time. Then, Qin Nan revealed a satisfied smile. In these 14 hours, his harvest was extraordinarily bountiful. Congratulations, young master. You've grasped saber intent and achieved one with the saber. At this time, Tai San walked out of the house with a smile on his face. This is all thanks to third uncle's experience. Qin Nan hurriedly expressed his gratitude. If it weren't for Tai San's notes, he wouldn't have been able to reach this level in such a short time. Tai San shook his head. Young master, you shouldn't be so modest. It's mainly because your talent is too strong. Qin Nan did not answer. Instead, he asked curiously, by the way, third uncle, what do you mean by one with the saber? Tai San's face became serious and he said, Young master, before answering this question, let me ask you first. Do you have a feeling that the saber art you've grasped has completely surpassed the power of the Thunder Crash saber art? Qin Nan blanked for a moment before nodding his head thoughtfully. The Thunder Crash saber art was only an intermediate martial art within the Qin family's martial arts. However, if Qin Nan were to use one with the saber, his saber intent would burst forth. Even if his opponent used an advanced martial art, or even an ultimate martial art, they would not be able to fight against him. Baidu search AI Go female sign Xiao Sei www.aichuxs.com. Tai San continued, as everyone knows, martial arts are divided into elementary, intermediate, advanced, and ultimate martial arts. The higher the rank of the martial art, the greater the power it can display. Actually, that's not the case. In terms of martial arts, the higher the rank, the greater the power. However, when a martial art is cultivated to another level, such as one with the saber, it can no longer be measured by rank, but rather by a realm. Realm. Qin Nan faintly understood. Tai San nodded and said, That's right. The higher the realm, the greater the power one can grasp. For example, one with the saber is actually one with the sword and so on. They are all called one with the weapon. This is the first realm, which is divided into elementary, advanced, and consummation. After one with the weapon, there is an even higher realm, called the hyperfocus realm. After the hyperfocus realm, there are even higher martial arts realms. However, these are no longer known to me. Above one with the weapon, there is still the hyperfocus realm. So that's how it is, At this moment, Qin Nan came to a sudden realization. He completely understood. For example, martial skills were only a stepping stone. Only the stronger your grasp of the realm, the greater the power you could unleash. For example, the Thunder Crash saber art that Qin Nan currently grasped could no longer be measured by a middle-level martial art. Instead, it could be measured by the advanced level of one with the saber. Young master, the sky is already bright. Why don't we leave now and gather with the Qin family before heading to the Fong family to participate in the Xianling clan's disciple recruitment ceremony? Tai San couldn't help but remind Qin Nan when he saw that he had sunk into deep thought. Qin Nan came back to his senses. He realized that at this moment, even though the sky was slightly bright, the Qin family was incomparably bustling with noise and excitement. He immediately nodded his head. Tai San and Qin Nan walked together toward the Qin family's martial arts practice field. The martial arts practice field was bustling with noise and excitement. On the head seat, the great elder Qin Tiaba's face was radiant and rosy. Behind him were the second elder, the third elder, and the various attendants of the Qin family. On the other side was Qin Tian. However, there wasn't a single person behind Qin Tian. He stood there all by himself, forming a sharp contrast. The disciples below were led by Qin Chongkong. Today, Qin Chongkong had recovered his usual bearing. His face was filled with arrogance, and the aura emitted from his body was even stronger than that of a third-layer body-tempering realm cultivator. It was obvious that he had consumed a lot of cultivation resources in the past few days. When Tai San and Qin Nan walked into the martial arts practice field, the originally fiery atmosphere suddenly quieted down. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured onto a pile of flames. Everyone's gazes simultaneously turned toward them. The first to look over was naturally Qin Tiaba and Qin Chongkong. The father and son's eyes were filled with resentment and killing intent. There was also a trace of impatience. It was obvious that the father and son had already made up their minds to take revenge during the Xianling clan's disciple recruitment ceremony. The other group of gazes were from the Qin family's elders and attendants. Not long ago, after Qin Nan defeated Qin Chongkong in the Great Assembly Hall, he had given a good lecture to this group of elders and attendants. However, judging from the current situation, Qin Nan's words had no effect at all. From the looks of disdain these elders and attendants were giving Qin Nan, it was obvious that they didn't take Qin Nan seriously. You, Qin Nan, even said that you wouldn't regret it? This was simply making a fool of yourself. If you followed Qin Nan and Qin Tian, then you would regret it. The remaining people were naturally the Qin family's disciples. The gazes of these Qin family's disciples were much more honest. There wasn't much ridicule or disdain. This was completely because Qin Nan's cultivation was much higher than theirs. They simply didn't have the confidence to face Qin Nan. However, within this group of disciples, there were a few whose faces were filled with disdain. Some even quietly ridiculed him. The one who went the most overboard was the Qin family's genius disciple, Qin Hai. Qin Nan's face was expressionless. When he had entered the martial arts field, he had already taken in the situation. Although he was slightly disappointed in this group of people, he quickly calmed down. He didn't even look at the elders, attendants, or disciples. Qin Nan and Tai San stood behind Qin Tian. Only then did the deathly silence in the martial arts field return to normal. At this time, Qin Tian opened his mouth. He was full of energy. Very good. Everyone should understand the rules, right? I won't say much. Now that everyone is here, let's set off. We'll wait until we reach the Fong family. After he finished speaking, Qin Tian waved his hand and led Qin Nan and Tai San away. Behind him, Qin Tiaba and the others quickly followed. They led the Qin family's large army and headed towards the Fong family's residence. After a while, Qin Nan followed Qin Tian. Not far from them, a majestic mahogany door came into view. Above the door hung a golden plaque. On the plaque, 2 large words were written, Fong family. The words were vigorous and incomparably bold. At the entrance of the Fong family's residence stood 5 rows of servants. The servants wore red robes and appeared to be in a jubilant mood. When these servants saw the Qin family, a third-layer body-tempering realm cultivator among them immediately shouted, "The guests of the Qin family have arrived." Just as the voice finished speaking, a ferocious aura suddenly exploded from within the Fong family. A tall man wearing a white tiger robe strode over. Although he had a smile on his face, His aura was very imposing. This person was the patriarch of the Fong family, Fong Li. As soon as Fong Li appeared, the Qin family's attendants and disciples all felt their hearts tighten. Guests of the Qin family have arrived. First of all, I would like to say, Brother Qin Tian, our place is small. Please forgive us for not being a good host. Fong Li welcomed them with a smile. However, his eyes didn't even look at Qin Tiaba and the others. Instead, they fell on Qin Tian. The expressions of Qin Tiaba and the others changed. Although Qin Tian was still the patriarch, who didn't know that the actual person in charge of the Qin family was Qin Tiaba, Fong Li's actions were like a slap to Qin Tiaba's face. However, this was the Fong family's territory. Furthermore, this was the Xianling clan's disciple recruitment ceremony. No matter how bad Qin Tiaba's temper was, he could only restrain himself. The Fong family is already luxurious enough. Brother Fong Li, let's not make small talk. I don't want to make the two elders wait. Qin Tian's expression was calm, as if he didn't care at all. Fong Li didn't say anything else. He led everyone into the Fong family. However, on the way, Fong Li took the initiative to talk to Qin Tian. He even asked about Qin Nan. However, he didn't even look at Qin Tiaba and the others. Fong Li led the Qin family directly to the martial training field. At this moment, there was a high platform in the martial training field. The high platform was paved with white jade, and it was extremely luxurious. Below the high platform was an arena with a circumference of 50 meters. Around the arena were rows of seats. Qin Nan followed behind Qin Tian. Without making a sound, he first glanced at the Fong family disciples. His gaze immediately landed on a young man. This young man was wearing a white robe. His figure was very similar to Fong Li's, and he was extremely tall. However, the aura emitted from this young man was only at the third layer of body tempering realm. While Qin Nan was sizing up this young man was naturally sizing up the Qin family as well. However, his eyes were filled with disdain. It seems like this person is Fong Rulong. He has a 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. It's impossible for him to only be at the third layer of body tempering realm. It seems like he is still hiding his cultivation. Qin Nan roughly deduced in his heart. His gaze immediately shifted toward the high platform. Qin Nan really wanted to know what kind of existence this person from the Xianling clan was. However, just as Qin Nan's gaze shifted toward the high platform, a gaze was also directed toward him from the high platform. The two gazes collided in midair. Chapter 21. A Genius Remembers Love in a Second? We provide you with interesting novels to read. The gaze was ordinary, or maybe it was just a casual glance from the person. However, Qin Nan felt an unimaginably terrifying force from the gaze. In front of this force, Qin Nan was like an ant that could be crushed at any time. Such terrifying strength! Qin Nan bit the tip of his tongue to suppress his emotions and looked toward the owner of the gaze. A woman could be seen sitting on top of the white jade platform. The woman had a fair complexion, thin eyebrows like the moon, and eyes that seemed to be drawn with a brush, full of spirit and beauty. Not only that, this woman was wearing a purple dress that tightly wrapped around her waist. Under the illumination of the sun in the sky, the purple dress actually glowed with spiritual light, reflecting off the woman's fair skin. Qin Nan's heart was suddenly filled with a breathtaking feeling, and he couldn't help but be stunned. The woman on the platform seemed to be a little startled, and a serious look appeared in her eyes as she looked at Qin Nan from top to bottom. Qin Nan immediately recovered from the shock. He could only feel that this woman's gaze was like a sharp sword that pierced through his body, making it impossible for Qin Nan to hide any secrets. Qin Nan was not used to this kind of prying feeling, but luckily, the woman only looked at him with a glance, and didn't deliberately peek at Qin Nan. This allowed Qin Nan to let out a sigh of relief, and he quickly shifted his gaze. Qin Nan's gaze landed on the second person on the white jade platform. This was a middle-aged man. This middle-aged man was wearing a white robe with golden cuffs, and 3 golden dragons on his chest. He had a ferocious expression, giving off an extremely domineering feeling. Furthermore, this middle-aged man didn't conceal his aura at all, which was overbearing and unfathomable. These 2 elders of the Xianling clan are extremely powerful. They are at least at the peak of the greater heaven stage. Especially that woman, she may have even surpassed the Xiantian realm. Qin Nan thought to himself. His yearning for the Xianling clan grew stronger. Within the Xianling clan, the 2 people who casually walked out had such cultivation. Then, how powerful was the strength of the Xianling clan? However, Qin Nan did not discover a problem. He was only at the 5th layer of the body-tempering realm, yet he was able to estimate the cultivation level of the 2 Xianling clan elders. Moreover, the results of this estimation were not too different. This was something that Qin Nan did not realize. Ever since the change of the divine battle spirit, his eyes had become even more powerful and possessed many new abilities. After that, the Qin family entered the arena and sat across from the Fong family. It seemed as if they were going to face off against each other. However, while the Qin family and the Fong family were facing off against each other, most of their gazes were focused on the platform. It was obvious that they, like Qin Nan, were extremely curious about the 2 elders sent by the Xianling clan. At this moment, Fong Li's figure leaped and landed on the platform. Facing the crowd, his face was flushed, and he seemed to be slightly excited. "Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to formally introduce these 2 people to you. These 2 are Elder Xiao Qingshu and Elder Bai Heng, sent by the Xianling clan." As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd burst into a deafening applause. Every disciple's face was flushed with excitement. Their gazes toward the white jade platform were filled with respect and passion. Elder Xiao slightly nodded his head, but didn't say anything. On the contrary, the middle-aged man, Elder Bai Heng, seemed to be enjoying this scene. His face was filled with pride. Soon after, Elder Bai Heng stood up and said loudly, "It's your honor to be able to participate in the Xianling clan's disciple examination. That's all I have to say. Fong Li, hurry up and start." In this short sentence, his disdain for the people of Linshui City, as well as his own strength and dominance, were all clearly displayed. However, the crowd did not feel any discomfort except for Qin Nan, who frowned slightly. After Bai Heng spoke, Fong Li immediately said, "Okay, let's start the first round, the martial competition. I believe everyone knows the rules. Now, come up on the platform one by one and draw your lot. The format of the battle is number 1 against number 60, and so on. The person who draws number 30 will be eliminated immediately." All the disciples immediately walked toward the platform one by one to draw their lot. Qin Nan casually drew a lot at the back. As soon as he opened it, he saw the large number 1. "What's your number?" Qin Tian and Tai San immediately came up and asked. "Number 1. Qin Nan waved his hand and said indifferently, "It seems that this is my first battle." Qin Tian and Tai San nodded and didn't say anything. Qin Nan's expression was also very calm. He didn't have the slightest bit of nervousness of being the first to go up on the platform. "Qin Nan, why is it you?" Suddenly, an incomparably gloomy voice resounded. Qin Nan turned his head to look and was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that the person who came was actually one of the geniuses of the Qin family, Qin Hai. Qin Nan had quite an impression of Qin Hai. This was because this Qin Hai had frequently slandered him in the Qin family. Even during the disciple assessment, Qin Hai had ridiculed him many times. Upon having this thought, a strange look appeared on Qin Nan's face. Could this be the karma of the unseen? Qin Hai's expression was extremely ugly. The members of the Qin family below, including Qin Chongkong and Qin Tieba, all looked at Qin Hai with eyes full of sympathy. Although Qin Nan had a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, Qin Nan's cultivation was at the 4th layer of body-tempering realm. Even Qin Chongkong wasn't a match for him. Qin Hai only had a 4th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit at the 2nd layer of body-tempering realm. How could he be a match for Qin Nan? Furthermore, this Qin Hai had attacked Qin Nan many times. With Qin Nan's personality, he definitely wouldn't let Qin Hai go. Don't dawdle, hurry up and start. At this moment, Bai Heng's impatient voice resounded. Bai Heng didn't have any interest in this kind of martial arts competition. Although the disciples' martial arts competition was used to observe the abilities of their martial spirits, the most important factor in recruiting disciples was the grade of their martial spirit. As long as your martial spirit's grade was high enough, you would definitely be recruited into the sect. Furthermore, in this small Linshui city, apart from the Qin family's Qin Chongkong and the Fang family's Fang Rulong, what other geniuses could there be? Therefore, Bai Heng had always been like this. He never had any feelings for trash like this. Qin Nan, you. Hearing Bai Heng's words, Qin Hai's heart trembled. However, he didn't dare to move. This was because Qin Hai was very clear that he wasn't a match for Qin Nan. He was a genius with a 4th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, and had the opportunity to enter the Xianling clan. If he was defeated by Qin Nan here, then what chance did Qin Hai have to enter the Xianling clan? Thinking of this, Qin Hai felt even more sullen. If he didn't become a disciple of the Xianling clan this time, then he probably wouldn't have a chance in this lifetime. Calm down, calm down. Although my cultivation isn't as good as his, I'm sure there's still a way. Qin Hai continuously muttered in his heart. His brain was spinning rapidly. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he came up with a brilliant idea. Qin Hai's entire body relaxed. His expression returned to normal. He didn't make a move, but instead said loudly, "Qin Nan, for this battle, why don't you take the initiative to admit defeat? As long as you admit defeat, when I become a disciple of the Xianling clan, I'll give you endless benefits. I'll let you live a life of glory, splendor, and wealth." Once these words were spoken, everyone was slightly stunned. Qin Hai actually opened his mouth to ask someone to admit defeat? Qin Nan was also slightly stunned. He didn't expect Qin Hai to say such words. However, Qin Nan's expression quickly returned to normal, without the slightest ripple. Qin Hai was aware of the gazes of the crowd, but he didn't care. On the contrary, when he saw that Qin Nan didn't express his opinion, he became anxious and said, "Qin Nan, in terms of cultivation, I'm indeed not your opponent. However, you're only a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit trash. You're destined to never have the opportunity to enter the Xianling clan in this lifetime. Why don't you give this opportunity to me? When the time comes, I'll definitely repay you 100-fold. Noisy! Get the hell out of here!" Before Qin Hai could finish his words, a thunderous voice suddenly resounded. Qin Nan's expression was incomparably cold. He didn't expect this Qin Hai to call him trash after begging him to admit defeat. Therefore, at this moment, Qin Nan didn't have the slightest intention of stopping him. The saber intent emitted from his body soared into the sky, suppressing Qin Hai. At this instant, Qin Hai's expression changed greatly, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. Qin Hai could only feel his surroundings suddenly turning cold, as a formless murderous intent wreaked havoc. It was as if there was a huge saber emitting a cold light floating above his head, which could fall at any time and take his life away. Qin Hai opened his mouth wide, and his face was filled with terror. He kept repeating the word "I." At this moment, it was as if he had lost his ability to think. Only the fear of death continued to grow in his heart, expanding continuously. At this moment, the entire crowd was silent for a few breaths' time. Following this, everyone's faces were filled with great astonishment. What's going on? What's this monstrous coldness? Why is Qin Nan emitting such a strong aura? Even the originally impatient elder Bai Heng, who was seated on the white jade high platform, was suddenly stunned. His expression was unable to conceal the astonishment that rose within it. This is the cultivation of the fifth layer of body tempering realm? Greater success of one with the saber? Behind Elder Bai Heng, Elder Zhao's expressionless eyes slightly lit up. Chapter 22. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second/Small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. After hearing Elder Bai Heng's words, the astonishment on the faces of the disciples grew even stronger. Baidu search AI Go Xiaosei www.aichux.com. They never would have thought that Qin Nan had actually reached the fifth layer of body tempering realm. Wasn't Qin Nan trash? Especially Fong Li and the others, as well as Fong Rulong, were even more shocked than the disciples. These disciples might not understand, but they understood what it meant to achieve the realm of one with the saber. One had to know that even in the Fong clan, there were only 2 people who had reached the advanced stage of the human weapon unification. While the Fong family was shocked, the Qin family was also extremely shocked. Qin Tieba, Qin Chongkong, and the group of elders were petrified. They clearly knew that Qin Nan's cultivation was only at the 4th layer body tempering realm a few days ago. How did he reach the 5th layer of body tempering realm? And he had even mastered the realm of one with the saber? Wasn't Qin Nan a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit trash? How was it possible for him to advance at such a terrifying speed? On the white jade platform, Elder Bai Heng quickly reacted, but his expression was slightly unpleasant. His eyes were filled with coldness as he glanced at Fong Li. The Qin family had such a peerless genius, yet this Fong Li actually hid it from him? Fong Li's heart suddenly turned cold, and cold sweat immediately appeared on his forehead. He hurriedly said, "Elder Bai Heng, this Qin Nan is the young master of the Qin family. Since he was young, his talent in martial skills was outstanding. When he was in his teens, he created his own martial skill. Furthermore, his awakened martial spirit was only first-grade Huang rank. His current cultivation is due to the fortunate encounter he had at the Longhu mountain range." After hearing Fong Li's words, the disciples and elders of the Fong clan felt relieved, as they came to a realization. It was reasonable for him to have a fortuitous encounter in the Longhu mountain range and reach the 5th stage body tempering realm in half a month. Otherwise, with a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, how many years would it take to reach this level? In the Fong clan, Fong Rulong sat in the seat of honor. His expression had been one of shock and disgust, but when he heard these words, he immediately recovered. He looked at Qin Nan with eyes full of contempt and disdain. "So what if you, Qin Nan, have the cultivation of body tempering stage 5? So what if he had reached the advanced stage of one with the saber? With a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, you are destined to be trash. So that's how it is. First-grade Huang-grade trash." Elder Bai Heng came to his senses, and a feeling of being deceived welled up in his heart. He was extremely displeased at the moment and said coldly, "All right, stop stalling for time. End the battle for me." Baidu search AI Chu Xiao Shua WAIChuek.com. At this moment, Elder Bai Heng's attitude towards Qin Nan had become incomparably cold. At the same time, after hearing Elder Bai Heng's words, not only the people of the Fong clan, but even the people of the Qin clan glanced at Qin Nan with mocking expressions. "Now that you have provoked Elder Bai Heng's displeasure, what future do you, Qin Nan, have to speak of?" In the Qin clan, Qin Tian and Tai San's expressions became extremely ugly. However, they couldn't do anything about it. Otherwise, it would bring about a huge disaster. They could only swallow their anger. On the stage, Qin Nan's expression turned cold, but he quickly restrained it, making it so that no one could see the slightest ripple. Although he was extremely displeased with Elder Bai Heng's words, Qin Nan didn't let anger get to his head. If he showed any killing intent on his face, Elder Bai Heng would definitely kill him. This was definitely not what Qin Nan wanted to see. Scram! Shouted Qin Nan loudly. The saber intent on his body no longer restrained itself. It became even stronger and crushed down. Scram, scram, scram. I admit defeat, scram immediately. When Qin Hai heard this, it was as if he had been pardoned. He repeatedly surrendered and even looked at the referee with a trace of pleading. Ai Chu Xiao Shuaku. Regardless of what the Fong clan, the Qin clan, and Elder Bai Heng's attitude towards Qin Nan, Qin Hai only knew that he was about to collapse. Under the threat of death, even if Qin Nan asked him to kneel down, Qin Hai would kneel down without hesitation. One had to know that in this martial arts competition, there was no rule that forbade killing. Therefore, as long as he could live, Qin Hai was willing to pay any price. Victory to Qin Nan! The judge immediately yelled out. Qin Nan turned around and left. He didn't care about the gloating expressions of the Qin clan. He turned around and sat down in his seat. His expression was calm, as if everything that happened around him had nothing to do with him. Following this, the martial arts competition continued. However, due to Qin Nan's shocking performance, the following battles became boring. After all, even those who possessed 4th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirits were only at the 2nd-layer body-tempering realm. After the 13th battle, the referee announced, "Next, Fang Rulong from the Fang clan, Qin Li from the Qin clan." Fang Rulong. As soon as this name was announced, it immediately attracted the attention of the entire audience. Especially the Qin clan, all of their gazes were focused on Fang Rulong. Everyone in Linshui City knew that Fang Rulong was the young master of the Fang clan. Although they didn't know what kind of martial spirit he had awakened, according to the rumors within the Fang clan, Fang Rulong had also awakened a 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. A 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit was considered a top genius in the entire Linshui City. Within the Qin clan, only Qin Chongkong possessed such a martial spirit. Humph! Qin Chongkong realized that the gazes of the entire audience were attracted to him. He immediately sneered, "It's just a mere Fang Rulong, is it worth so much attention? The one who can become a disciple of the Xianling clan will definitely be me." After Qin Chongkong spoke, the other elders and deacons nodded their heads. After all, Qin Chongkong had already been decided to become a disciple of the Xianling clan. Today's participation in the disciple selection was only a formality. What right did Fang Rulong have to compete with Qin Chongkong? Qin Li, who was battling against Fang Rulong, was considered the backbone of the Qin clan. He had awakened a 3rd-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. Although his cultivation had yet to reach the 2nd layer of body-tempering realm, and was only at the 1st layer of body-tempering realm, the aura emitted from his body was extremely dense. It was obvious that he had reached the peak of the 1st layer of body-tempering realm. When Fang Rulong went up the stage and saw Qin Li, he suddenly laughed and said shocking words, "What right does a piece of trash like you have to battle with me? I'll give you 2 choices now. Either you surrender, or you'll be crippled by me." As soon as he finished speaking, a ferocious aura gushed out from his body. It was the 3rd layer of body-tempering realm, and it was filled with hostility. The faces of the members of the Qin clan changed, including Qin Nan, who frowned. This Fang Rulong was simply too arrogant. The moment he opened his mouth, he said that he would cripple someone. This showed that he didn't put the Qin clan in his eyes at all. How arrogant! Qin Chongkong's face was filled with anger as he coldly said, "Does this Fang Rulong think that he's the #1 genius of Linshui City?" The other deacons, elders, and disciples were also incomparably indignant as they voiced their opinions. Fang Rulong stood on the stage as if he didn't hear these voices. His smile grew even wider as he said, "I'll give you 5 breaths of time to consider. 1, 2, 3. Qin Li's face suddenly flushed red. His eyes were burning with anger. Fang Rulong's actions were simply humiliating him. However, when Qin Li saw the wolf-like gaze in Fang Rulong's eyes, his heart suddenly trembled. He didn't know why, but in Qin Li's heart, a trace of fear was born. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over him, completely extinguishing the flames of anger in his stomach. Suddenly, Qin Li's heart crumbled as he said, "I surrender. I choose to surrender." Qin Li's choice didn't surprise the crowd in the slightest. Even the members of the Qin clan, other than feeling that they had lost face, didn't blame Qin Li. After all, Qin Li and Fang Rulong were 2 levels apart in terms of cultivation, and the gap between their martial spirits was also very large. If it was anyone else, they would have made the same choice. However, the following scene caused their eyes to widen. Before Qin Li could finish the word surrender, Fang Rulong suddenly bared his teeth and smiled. His smile was incomparably ferocious. Immediately after, his figure was like a violent demonic beast as he suddenly charged forward. His fist carried a majestic force as it ruthlessly landed on Qin Li's body. A heart-wrenching scream immediately rang out. Qin Li's entire body, as if it had been released from a bowstring, flew backwards and fell to the ground, unconscious. The entire crowd was silent because no one had expected Fang Rulong to suddenly make a move. Chapter 23. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? Sagnet, providing you with wonderful novels to read. The Qin family members widened their eyes, the veins on their foreheads popping out as they seethed with anger. Love go little said, Fang Rulong was simply too arrogant and overbearing. Not only had he verbally humiliated them, but he had also crippled their Qin family disciple with one move. This was undoubtedly a public slap to the Qin family's face. He didn't take the Qin family seriously at all. Qin Tian stood up almost instantly. His face was full of anger as he said, "Fang Li, what is the meaning of this? It's just a competition. Do you really want to cripple someone?" If it weren't for Tai San holding Qin Tian back from behind, Qin Tian would probably have rushed up to Fang Rulong and beat him up. Although Qin Tian no longer had his former status in the Qin family, the members of the Qin family were still members of the Qin family. He, Qin Tian, wouldn't just stand by and watch the Qin family be bullied and humiliated by the Fang family. Fang Li's expression didn't change. He didn't take Qin Tian's anger seriously at all. The corners of his mouth even curled up into a smile as he said, "Patriarch Qin Tian, that's where you're wrong. Firstly, this competition is a matter of life and death. Secondly, I agree with Rulong's approach. In this world, trash doesn't have the right to live. They should be crippled." The expressions of the Qin family members changed again. A love go little said, Chu they never expected Fang Li to say such a thing. It was clear that the Fang family wanted to deal with the Qin family. Good, very good. At this time, Qin Chongkong could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. He laughed 3 times, but his face was as gloomy as water. His eyes constantly swept over the many disciples of the Fang family, and he said, "Since your Fang family is doing this, then I would like to see what level your Fang family's disciples are at today." Not only Qin Chongkong, but the other disciples and elders of the Qin family all sneered, killing intent flashing in their eyes. "Since your Fang family is so thick-skinned and shameless as to target our Qin family, then don't blame our Qin family for being impolite to you. Could it be that the Qin family was a soft persimmon that anyone could bully?" However, right at that moment, a loud laugh was suddenly heard. The person who had laughed was none other than Bai Heng. Elder Bai Heng's smile naturally attracted the attention of the members of the Qin family and the Fang family. They saw that Bai Heng's face was flushed red, and he seemed to be in an incomparably good mood. He said, "All right, let's not quarrel anymore. I think that Fang Rulong is doing the right thing. Trash should be beaten to a pulp, and they should be killed. As soon as he said this, the expressions of the Qin family changed slightly. What did Elder Bai Hing mean by this? Was he supporting the Fong family? Elder Bai Hing paused for a moment, and then swept his cold gaze over them. Fong Rulong is someone I've taken a liking to. If the Qin family dares to seek revenge, then don't blame me for being impolite. You'd better understand that the puny Qin family is nothing more than an ant in my eyes. These words caused the expressions of the members of the Qin family to change drastically. Their faces were full of shock. They never would have thought that Elder Bai Hing would actually be so open and be so blunt as to side with the Fong clan. What did he mean by that? If the Fong family could make a move against the Qin family, then the Qin family could not retaliate? Especially Qin Chongkong and Qin Tieba, the father and son, whose faces immediately turned pale. Qin Chongkong was a predetermined disciple of the Xianling clan. His participation in the disciple recruitment ceremony was only a formality. However, Elder Bai Hing was so blatant and domineering in his support of the Fong family. Could it be that Elder Bai Hing had completely taken a liking to Fong Rulong, and no longer cared about Qin Chongkong? If that was the case, then it was no doubt a thunderbolt from the sky for Qin Chongkong. Love Go Xiao Sei Chu without Elder Bai Hing's attention, even if Qin Chongkong had a 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, he would not have had the chance to enter the Xianling clan and become a disciple of the Xianling clan. Elder Bai. The anger in Qin Chongkong's mind completely disappeared, and was replaced by endless nervousness as he stammered, What I said just now was wrong. Elder Bai, please don't misunderstand. I promise that the Qin family will not take revenge on the Fong family. Not only Qin Chongkong, but the expressions of the other members of the Qin clan also became incomparably perturbed. There were even some people who piled up an apologetic smile on their faces. Right now, they simply didn't care if Qin Li was crippled or not. They also didn't care if the Fong family wanted to attack their Qin family. They only knew that if they made Elder Bai Hing unhappy, their entire Qin family would be destroyed. Elder Bai is right. Why would we take revenge? Fong Rulong has such a personality, of course we will support him. That's right, such a martial heart is rare. The deacons and elders of the Qin family started to fawn over Qin Chongkong. Only Qin Tian and Tai San had unsightly expressions on their faces. They even faintly sensed something in their hearts. However, under such circumstances, it was not good for them to be angry. If they were to be angry, they would have to face the wrath of Elder Bai Hing. At that time, who in the entire Qin family would be able to stop him? After hearing these words, Elder Bai Hing nodded his head in satisfaction and said, Not bad, everyone in the Qin family knows how to look at the big picture. Qin Chongkong, do your best, I have high hopes for you. After hearing these words, Qin Chongkong and the other members of the Qin family could not help but let out sighs of relief. As long as Elder Bai Hing did not get angry, so what if Fong Rulong crippled a few disciples of the Qin family? When Fong Li and Fong Rulong saw the Qin family's actions, their eyes flashed with a trace of disdain and pride. It was obvious that this situation was within their expectations. Not only the two of them, but all the disciples and elders of the Fong family were also in high spirits and incomparably excited. Since Elder Bai Hing was biased towards the Fong family, why should the Qin family be afraid? On the white jade platform, Xiao Qingshue's beautiful eyes quietly watched all of this. From start to finish, she did not say anything. However, when she saw the Qin family bending over to curry favor, her beautiful eyes flashed with an undetectable trace of disgust. Following this, Xiao Qingxue suddenly thought of the young man who was able to look straight into her eyes, and could not help but look toward him. She saw Qin Nan sitting in his original position with a calm expression, as if he was not afraid of Elder Bai Hing's bias. nor was he angry at Fong Rulong crippling the disciples of the Qin family. Although Qin Nan hid it well, Xiao Qingshua's sharp senses could still see a hint of coldness in his eyes. This caused Xiao Qingxue to be curious, as she thought to herself, "This guy, what will he do when the time comes?" While Xiao Qingxue was curious, Fong Rulong, who was sitting at the head of the disciples of the Fong family, seemed to have thought of something and glanced toward Qin Nan. With this glance, Fong Rulong's face turned cold, and he could not help but sneer. "Young Master Qin Nan, you're only a first-grade Huang rank trash, martial spirit trash. Why are you looking at our Fong family with such a murderous gaze? Are you planning to use your weak cultivation to attack the disciples of the Fong family?" After hearing this, the faces of the Qin family changed, and they all looked toward Qin Nan. After hearing this, Elder Bai Heng withdrew the smile on his face. He was already displeased with Qin Nan, and with Fong Rulong's words, the displeasure in his heart grew even greater. His face instantly turned cold, and a formless, terrifying aura was emitted from his body. Chapter 24. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. As Qin Nan had observed, Elder Bai Heng's cultivation had reached the peak of the Xiantian realm, and was only a step away from reaching the martial emperor realm. His aura was fully unleashed, which felt like a huge boulder crushing down on the crowd, causing them to feel suffocated. The crowd's expression changed slightly, and their gazes toward Elder Bai Heng were filled with fear. Elder Bai Heng's face was expressionless. He didn't even look at Qin Nan, and said in a calm tone, "Is what Fong Rulong said true?" Although it was just a few words, it gave the crowd an indescribable pressure. The faces of the people of the Qin family turned unpleasant, as they stared at Qin Nan, afraid that Qin Nan would say something disrespectful. Everyone knew that there was a huge conflict between Qin Nan and them. If Qin Nan were to infuriate Elder Bai Heng, even though death would be the only outcome for him, it would also drag them all down with him. If Qin Nan wants to die, then go ahead and die. Why do you have to drag us all down with you? At that instant, the disciples, deacons, and elders of the Qin family were filled with hatred toward Qin Nan, but they didn't dare to show it at that moment. Qin Nan's expression didn't change much, as if he wasn't affected by Elder Bai Heng's aura. Under everyone's gaze, Qin Nan stood up and bowed toward Elder Bai Heng, and said in a sincere tone, "Elder Bai Heng, I have no intention of seeking revenge. I believe young Master Fong Rulong misunderstood. I apologize to young Master Fong Rulong for causing trouble here." After saying this, he bowed deeply in the direction of the Fong clan. At this moment, Elder Bai Heng's expression softened a lot. He even felt a sense of satisfaction when Qin Nan lowered his head. He waved his hand and said, "It's fine. Although you are a piece of trash, you have done a good job as a person. This matter is over. Let's continue with the martial arts competition." As Elder Bai Heng's aura dissipated, the breathing of the crowd returned to normal. When the members of the Fong clan saw the former genius of Linshui City, the current #1 trash, the young master of the Qin family, Qin Nan, actually lower his head and apologize to them at this time, they were extremely pleased. Their faces were flushed with excitement. As for Fong Rulong, the mocking smile on his face grew thicker and thicker. "So what if you, Qin Nan, have a cultivation base of body tempering stage 5, and have mastered the state of one with the saber? If I, Fong Rulong, want you to lower your head, you have to lower your head." On the contrary, the members of the Qin family let out a huge sigh of relief. The disciples, attendants, and elders of the Qin family all looked at Qin Nan with a pleasant expression. Especially Qin Chongkong. He originally thought that Qin Nan would purposely do something bad at this crucial moment and drag him down with him. However, he didn't expect that Qin Nan would take the blame by himself and take the initiative to apologize. Moreover, he even won Elder Bai Heng's favor. It seems that I have to change my mind. When I become the head of the Xianling clan, I shouldn't take his life. When the time comes, I can just cripple his cultivation base. Presumably, Qin Nan will also be grateful for my kindness of not killing him, Qin Chongkong thought to himself. He directly reduced Qin Nan's sentence. After that, the martial competition continued. During this period, when it was Qin Chongkong's turn to go on stage, although Qin Chongkong's opponent was only a first-layer body-tempering stage cultivator with a second-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, Qin Chongkong still treated him courteously. Even when he won in the end, Qin Chongkong didn't go too hard on him. This action made the disciples of the Fong clan even more arrogant. The members of the Qin family and Qin Chongkong didn't care about this scene. So what if they lost face now? It was much better than angering Elder Bai Heng and ruining their future. The martial competition was in full swing. When it was time for the 28th person, Qin Nan finally went on stage. This time, Qin Nan's appearance attracted the attention of everyone present. After all, Qin Nan was currently the strongest disciple in the entire Linshui city. Naturally, he would subconsciously attract the attention of everyone present. However, this time, Qin Nan's opponent was someone from the Fong clan. Standing opposite of Qin Nan was a young man with an arrogant expression. His name was Fong Yu, and he was quite famous in the entire Linshui city. This was because Fong Yu possessed a fourth-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, and his cultivation had reached the second-layer body-tempering stage. Not only that, Fong Yu's martial skill talent was outstanding, and he had mastered a few high-grade martial skills. He was second only to Fong Rulong in the Fong clan. As soon as Fong Yu went on stage, he immediately raised his head and looked at Qin Nan with a disdainful gaze, and said proudly, "Qin Nan, you should admit defeat. After all, you're only a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit trash. You won't have any chance. If you admit defeat now, you'll still have some face left." If it was before, Fong Yu would have felt his scalp go numb and his heart turn cold when facing Qin Nan. However, the current Fong Yu was not afraid of Qin Nan in the slightest. Elder Bai Heng is so biased toward the Fong clan. As a piece of trash, what right do you have to squeeze out a genius like him? The people of the Fong clan watched this scene with mocking expressions. The people of the Qin clan did not feel ashamed at all. Instead, their eyes flickered as if they were saying, "You, Qin Nan, just admit defeat." However, before Fong Yu could finish his sentence, the people of the Qin clan and the Fong clan were not aware of it. Suddenly, an incomparably sharp saber ray, accompanied by a clap of thunder, resounded on the stage. Fong Yu's eyes almost instinctively widened. Then, before he could even react, a terrifying power tore his entire body apart. Fong Yu's entire body was torn apart by the saber ray, and he died. The whole place was silent. The crowd had yet to react. This was because everything happened too quickly. It happened in less than a breath's time. It happened so quickly that even their brains could not react. There was only one thought in their minds: Fong Yu is dead. This matter is getting out of hand. Qin Nan, who was standing on the stage, slowly sheathed the black iron saber at his waist. His face was incomparably calm. His eyes looked in the direction of Fong Rulong, and he calmly said, "I have the same view as young Master Fong Rulong. There is no need for trash to continue living in this world. Furthermore, I'm a person who draws a clear line between love and hate. If someone punches me once, I'll punch them twice. Therefore, I'll tell you clearly. Every disciple of the Fong clan that I encounter, they're all." After saying this, Qin Nan paused for a moment, and his face suddenly became filled with killing intent. Chapter 25. Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Shuaweb, providing you with interesting novels to read. The crowd stared with their eyes open wide, their faces filled with astonishment. Qin Nan's words were like a bomb exploding in their ears, causing their brains to buzz. Qin Nan had made his move, and it was even more ruthless than Fang Rulong's, killing the second genius of the Fang clan, Fang Yu, with a single slash. Not only did he attack, he even gave the order to kill all the disciples of the Fang clan on sight. How disdainful was that? How imperious was that? Everyone knew that his actions were not only revenge against the Fang clan, but also challenging the authority of Elder Bai Heng, a ruthless challenge. Who was Elder Bai Heng? A member of the Xianling clan. Although they had no idea what was Elder Bai Heng's status in the Xianling clan, even a servant disciple of the Xianling clan had a respectable status in the Luoha kingdom, which was incomparable to the Fang clan and the Qin clan. And now, Qin Nan had challenged someone like Elder Bai Heng in front of everyone. Qin Nan Yu. Fang Li and Fang Rulong's faces were filled with astonishment and anger, as they could only point their fingers at Qin Nan, unable to say a single word. At this moment, the father and son duo could no longer find any words to describe their feelings. Not only Fang Li and Fang Rulong, but everyone in the Qin clan, with the exception of Qin Tian and Tai San, who had a blank expression on their faces, were enraged. Qin Nan was out of his mind. He dared to kill Bai Yu, and challenged Elder Bai Heng. Wasn't his action the same as dragging the entire Qin clan down with him? Qin Nan? Qin Chongkong, in particular, was so angry that his facial features were distorted. Just now, he thought that Qin Nan understood the situation and bowed his head to admit his mistake. Love go little say kunao, Qin Nan's actions could be described as lawless. Qin Nan's life or death, Qin Chongkong didn't care. But you, Qin Nan, why did you drag Qin Chongkong down with you? The entire Qin family couldn't bear Elder Bai Heng's fury. On the high platform, Xiao Qingxue was stunned for a moment, before she collected her thoughts. A smile appeared in her eyes, but no one was aware of it. At this moment, Elder Bai Heng also collected his thoughts. However, his expression was completely different from Xiao Qingxue's. It was filled with anger. Although his position in the Xianling clan was not high, he was still considered an average outer disciple. Now, a young master of a clan in a tiny Linshui city in the Luoha kingdom, and a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit trash, dared to disobey him and challenge his authority. To Elder Bai Heng, this was the greatest humiliation he had ever experienced. In an instant, Elder Bai Heng's figure rose from the ground. The aura of the peak Xiantian realm was completely unleashed, suppressing the crowd. It was as if a noble had unleashed his fury at this moment. Everyone at the scene trembled. Under such a terrifying aura, even Xiantian realm existences like Fang Li and Qin Tian were terrified, unable to resist it. However, the most terrified ones were the people of the Qin family. At this moment, they could almost smell the scent of death. Now that Elder Bai Heng was enraged, what chance did they have to survive? Apart from the fear in their hearts, the disciples, deacons, and elders of the Qin family were filled with a great hatred toward Qin Nan. If it weren't for Qin Nan, why would Elder Bai Heng be enraged? If it weren't for Qin Nan, why would the Qin family suffer such a calamity? Hatred, hatred to the bone, hatred to the soul. At this moment, Elder Bai Heng's face was filled with a hideous expression. He did not attack, but stared at Qin Nan. The aura of the peak Xiantian realm was unleashed toward Qin Nan without any reservation. Finally, Elder Bai Heng spoke. His tone was extremely calm, but it was filled with a terrifying murderous intent. Qin Nan, do you know what you've just done? On the ring, the focus of the crowd, Qin Nan faced the terrifying aura. Although his heart was beating rapidly, his blood was about to freeze, and he was about to faint due to the suffocation, Qin Nan's expression remained calm, as if he did not care about it at all. I know, Qin Nan said calmly, as if he was unaware of Elder Bai Heng's anger. I've only killed a piece of trash. Just now, young Master Fang Rulong said that trash shouldn't exist in this world. However, Fang Rulong only crippled that piece of trash. I don't think that's enough. Therefore, I've killed this piece of trash. Qin Nan continued to speak as if he did not know how high the sky was. Besides, Elder Bai Heng, there are no rules in this trial. Life and death are allowed. I didn't break any rules by killing that Fang Yu, right? Why is Elder Bai Heng so angry? The crowd was dumbfounded once again after hearing the word. It was true that there were no rules in this disciple recruitment ceremony. However, wasn't Elder Bai Heng's words more important than the rules? Furthermore, this Qin Nan even asked Elder Bai Heng why he was so angry? You, Qin Nan, even dared to go against Elder Bai Heng's words. How could Elder Bai Heng not be angry? This Qin Nan was out of his mind, completely out of his mind. Well, this is the first time that I, Bai Heng, have seen a body-tempering realm trash, a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit trash, dare to challenge me in my presence. Bai Heng laughed after being angered by Qin Nan. His body emitted a murderous aura. Today, I'll tell you that my words are the rules. If you dare to disobey me, I'll make sure you die today. Not only you, but the entire Qin clan will be buried with me. At that instant, Elder Bai Heng finally lost his temper. His body emitted a strong qi, which transformed into a giant hand, and slapped toward Qin Nan with a tremendous force. Nan watch out! At that instant, Qin Tian finally reacted and let out a roar. His expression changed greatly, and his figure dashed forward without hesitation. No matter what, even if he, Qin Tian, were to die today, he would not let his son die here. Suddenly, in the nick of time, an icy voice could be heard. Bai Heng, are you done? Stop it now. The one who spoke was none other than Xiao Qingxue, who had remained silent until now. As soon as Xiao Qingxue spoke, it was as if an invisible force was emitted, which caused the initially furious Bai Heng to feel a chill in his heart, causing his actions to come to a stop, and his qi to dissipate. Xiao, senior sister, what are you doing? Bai Heng was confused, and his face was filled with confusion. He was only trying to kill a piece of trash, but Xiao Qingxue stopped him? Why is that? Not only was Bai Heng confused, the crowd was even more confused. First of all, they did not expect Elder Bai Heng to call this beautiful lady senior sister. Secondly, why did this elder Xiao stop Bai Heng? Bai Heng, he's right. Xiao Qingxue calmly said, this martial competition does not concern one's identity. As a disciple of the Xianling clan, do you really think you can bully others with your status? So what if he killed someone? It's only because his opponent's cultivation was too weak. Alright, you shall stay here and watch the battle, and don't say a word. Xiao Qingxue's eyes flickered with a hint of coldness as she finished her sentence. Bai Heng's heart skipped a beat. His eyes were filled with a hint of fear that the crowd did not notice, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Although he had no idea why Xiao Qingxue suddenly interfered, and even scolded him, Elder Bai Heng knew one thing. Once Xiao Qingxue said it, no matter what, he, Bai Heng, would not kill that piece of trash. Upon having this thought, Bai Heng's heart was filled with anger. If it weren't for this piece of trash Qin Nan, how could he make Xiao Qingxue unhappy? The crowd was stunned. How could Qin Nan be fine? Without a doubt, this caused a feeling of absurdity to arise in their hearts. Qin Nan angered Elder Bai Heng. How could he be fine? Shouldn't Qin Nan be killed, and the whole Qin family be destroyed? Why did it change so suddenly? At that instant, the crowd collected their thoughts, and their gazes landed on Xiao Qingxue, who was standing behind Bai Heng. It was this beautiful elder Xiao who spoke. Even though Elder Bai Heng was furious, he had no choice but to obey her words. This meant that this beautiful elder Xiao's status was even more terrifying than Elder Bai Heng's. After seeing this, Qin Nan's tensed heart finally relaxed, and he felt a little dizzy. Previously, when facing Bai Heng's aura and powerful attack, Qin Nan had to spend a lot of energy just to maintain his appearance. If it weren't for the 8th grade Huang-ranked divine battle spirit in his body, he would have fainted on the spot with his current cultivation. The strength of the peak of the Xiantian realm, it was obvious how terrifying it was. However, Qin Nan didn't have any regrets. Although he didn't have any relationship with Qin Nan, and Qin Li might have even mocked him in private, Qin Nan was still unconvinced. Why could the Fong family casually cripple a disciple of the Qin family? Why couldn't the Fong family retaliate? Why couldn't the Qin family take revenge because of Elder Bai Heng's words? Why did they have to carefully flatter him? From the previous series of events, Qin Nan was very clear that the Fong family and Bai Heng had been colluding since the beginning. In this trial, the Fong family would most likely use Bai Heng to deal with the Qin family. Bai Heng must have gotten something from it, and wouldn't mind eliminating the Qin family. If that was the case, then Qin Nan wouldn't show any mercy. Elder Bai Heng was indeed powerful. He was a disciple of the Xianling clan, with a cultivation base of the peak Xiantian realm, and a noble status. However, this was nothing in Qin Nan's eyes. He, Qin Nan, possessed the divine battle spirit, which was his biggest trump card and his biggest pillar. His future was limitless. How could a mere Bai Heng compare to it? The only thing that surprised Qin Nan was Xiao Qingshue's attitude. Although Qin Nan had his trump card, Xiao Qingshue's words had saved Qin Nan a lot of trouble. This caused Qin Nan to have a good impression of this beautiful, powerful, and mysterious girl. Judging from this, Xiao Qingxue was obviously not the same as Bai Heng, and she was also very reasonable. At this moment, the atmosphere of the scene turned strange. Elder Bai Heng sat at the front with an unpleasant expression, and didn't say anything. Xiao Qingxue, who was behind him, didn't say anything either. The people of the two clans focused their attention on Qin Nan. Their eyes were filled with anger, astonishment, envy, and other complicated emotions, as if there were 100 different kinds of life. Chapter 26. Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second Divided by Xiao? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. With Xiao Qingshue's words, the outcome of the battle was determined. Fong Li and Fong Rulong's faces turned dark as they glared at Qin Nan. If it weren't for their fear of Xiao Qingxue, they would have rushed forward and killed this reckless guy. Initially, as Qin Nan had predicted, Fong Li and Fong Rulong had secretly colluded with Elder Bai Heng. All of this was for the sake of openly defeating the entire Qin clan in one fell swoop. However, Fong Li and Fong Rulong did not expect this Qin Nan to disobey Elder Bai Heng's words and kill the second genius of the Fong clan, causing them to suffer a great loss. Father, there's a change in the plan. With Elder Zhao's words, we can't be reckless in the first round. If that's the case, let's wait for the second round, where I'll show my true talent and destroy the Qin clan. Fong Rulong lowered his voice and whispered into Fong Li's ears with a murderous aura. Fong Li nodded his head, as his expression turned calmer. Although Qin Nan had the upper hand with Xiao Qingshue's words, when the second round began, Qin Nan would only have a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, which would be trash among trash. On the other hand, Fong Rulong would have a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, which would be stronger than Qin Chongkong. At that time, even Elder Xiao would not help the Qin clan. In the martial world, the strong preyed on the weak. Although Xiao Qingxue had helped the Qin clan this time, she would not help them a second time. This was because Fong Rulong was the real genius of Linshui City. Only he could become a disciple of the Xianling clan. Qin Nan was aware of the gazes from the father and son of the Fong clan. Apart from a cold grin on his face, there was no sign of worry on his face. He came down from the ring and walked toward the Qin clan. At that moment, the Qin clan members looked at Qin Nan with strange gazes. They did not want Qin Nan to offend Elder Bai Heng, but they did not dare to say it out loud. Since Elder Xiao had spoken, how could they stop her? Elder Xiao is even more powerful than Elder Bai Heng. Now that she is helping the Qin clan, it should be a great thing. Therefore, the Qin clan members felt complicated. Who would have thought that Qin Nan would have a blessing in disguise? However, in the next instant, a strange scene occurred once again. The referee's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his voice was trembling. Next, number 31, Qin Nan against Fang Hua. At that moment, everyone was stunned. They never would have thought that after Qin Nan had provoked the Fang clan and Elder Bai Heng, he would meet a disciple of the Fang clan so quickly. Was this the so-called fate? The expressions of the Fang clan members changed. Fang Hua was the third-ranked genius of the Fang clan, second only to Fang Yu. Qin Nan smiled faintly and stepped onto the ring. His gaze swept over the Fang clan members. At that moment, Fang Hua stepped onto the ring. He was originally an extremely arrogant and prideful person, but now his face was filled with fear. He did not have any of the high-spirited demeanor of the third-ranked genius of the Fang clan. I surrender. I surrender. Fang Hua screamed as soon as he stepped onto the ring. He did not care about his face at all. Facing Qin Nan, this lawless fiend, face was not important. He, Fang Hua, had a bright future ahead of him. He did not want to die here. As long as he could survive, Fang Hua was willing to do anything. However, at that moment, the familiar sound of thunder could be heard, followed by a cold flash that tore Fang Hua into pieces. Killed with a single slash without mercy. The crowd stared with their eyes wide open at the rain of blood on the ring, unable to recover from the shock. The third-ranked genius of the Fang clan died just like that? Qin Nan said with a calm expression, I agree with young Master Fang Rulong. Trash does not have the right to beg for mercy, nor does he have the right to surrender. There is only one outcome for him, and that is death. After hearing this, Fang Li and Fang Rulong's faces twitched violently. Even Elder Bai Heng, who was on the high platform, was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. His face was extremely pale. However, they did not dare to move. They could only watch with their eyes wide open. After all, Elder Xiao had already spoken. How could they dare to challenge Elder Zhao's authority? However, this was far from the end. What happened next caused the atmosphere to become even weirder. Number 33, Qin Nan stepped onto the ring to battle the fourth-ranked genius of the Fang clan. Number 35, Qin Nan stepped onto the ring to battle the fifth-ranked genius of the Fang clan. Each battle was no different from the previous ones. Just a single slash was enough to kill the fourth and fifth-ranked geniuses of the Fang clan. At that moment, the Qin clan was silent. The Fang clan was silent. Even Xiao Qingxue was slightly stunned. Wasn't all of this too unbelievable? The Fang clan had just offended the Qin clan. Qin Nan was enraged. Then, in 4 consecutive battles, he encountered the disciples of the Fang clan. Furthermore, they were not ordinary disciples of the Fang clan. They were the 4 geniuses of the Fang clan, second only to Fang Rulong. It was as if there was a mysterious force helping Qin Nan. Didn't you want to offend Qin Nan? Very well, I'll let you know how terrifying Qin Nan is. At this moment, everyone in the Fang clan, including Fang Li and Fang Rulong, had their eyes wide open as they stared blankly at Qin Nan in the ring. 4 geniuses of the Fang clan were all killed in just a few moments. Even though the Fang clan was one of the 2 great clans in Linshui City, with 100 years of history, the death of 4 top geniuses was something the Fang clan could not accept. After losing these geniuses, apart from Fang Rulong, who else in the Fang clan could take charge of the clan? No one. If a clan wanted to be strong, it could not only rely on a single person, but also many geniuses. Only then could the clan continue to grow stronger and develop. These geniuses were the foundation of a clan. Now, Qin Nan had destroyed their foundation in less than the time it took for an incense to burn. On the platform, green veins popped out on Elder Bai Heng's forehead. The aura in his body was faintly discernible as it continued to roar. Although he and the Fang clan only had a simple deal, Qin Nan's lawless act of killing 4 geniuses in a row was like a slap to Elder Bai Heng's face. The clan that Elder Bai Heng wanted to side with was being bullied by Qin Nan? Not only Bai Heng, but Fong Li and Fong Rulong, the father and son duo, had their eyes turned red as murderous intents were emitted from their bodies. If it weren't for the last bit of rationality in their minds, they would have lost their minds. Qin Nan, well done, indeed, well done. Fong Rulong's eyes turned red as he squeezed the words out from his throat, like a wild beast on the verge of going berserk. I'll remember your every move today. I hope you won't regret it when the time comes. The last sentence was uttered by Fong Rulong in a low voice. As a 6th-grade Huang-ranked genius, Fong Rulong was the real top genius of Linshui City. Since when had he felt so humiliated? However, he could only hold it in. If he couldn't hold it in and provoked Xiao Qingxue, even if Fong Rulong possessed a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, it would be useless, as it would bring a great disaster to the Fong clan. Therefore, Fong Rulong had no choice but to withhold his murderous intent and threaten Qin Nan. Qin Nan let out a hollow laugh after hearing this as he snapped, "Stop threatening me. When you were beating up the disciples of the Qin clan, did you ever think this day would come? Besides, what right do you have to threaten me?" Qin Nan's aura changed all of a sudden, as he regained the aura he had when he was provoking Bai Heng, imperious and lawless. Qin Nan glanced down at Fong Rulong with an icy gaze and said, "If you're not convinced, then come up to the stage and fight me. If you're not convinced, then don't talk nonsense. Fong Rulong, remember this. Who do you think you are? You're just a piece of trash, so shut the hell up." But Fong Rulong stared with his eyes open wide. It felt like a slap had landed on his face, causing him to feel dizzy. Fong Rulong's heart was filled with anger and frustration. He had the urge to let out a roar and go up to the stage to fight Qin Nan. However, it felt like his legs were filled with molten iron. He could not move them at all. Not only Fong Rulong, but the other disciples of the Fong clan also blushed in anger. However, there was a strong feeling hidden within their anger. Fong Rulong did not dare to move. They did not dare to move at all. Chapter 27. Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second Divided by Small? We provide you with interesting novels to read. After the period it took for an incense to burn, the judge in charge of the martial arts competition announced, "The first round of the competition has ended. Those who have advanced to the next round are Qin Nan, Qin Chongkong, and Fong Rulong. The last 2 disciples were the 2 geniuses of the Qin clan." In other words, only Fong Rulong from the Fong clan had advanced to the next round. However, this result caused Fong Rulong and Fong Li to feel slightly relieved. Everyone in the Fong clan felt relieved too. Now that the first round of the competition had ended, in other words, Qin Nan could no longer use his cultivation to target the Fong clan. Without his cultivation, what was Qin Nan? A first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit trash. What right did a piece of trash have to challenge the Fong clan? Even Xiao Qingxue would not side with a piece of trash at the last moment. Qin Nan, now that the first round has ended, I would like to see what you are capable of in the second round. The second round of the competition is extremely important as it does not test one's strength, but the grade of one's martial spirit. Fong Rulong couldn't help but mock Qin Nan as he walked onto the stage. However, even at this moment, Fong Rulong did not dare to mock Qin Nan. He was afraid that Qin Nan would say something that would cause him, Fong Rulong, to lose face. Therefore, Fong Rulong suppressed his murderous intent and waited for the overall situation to be settled, before he would settle the score with Qin Nan. Qin Nan glanced at him, but did not say anything. His expression was as calm as usual. Qin Nan did not say anything. On the contrary, Qin Chongkong, who had walked onto the stage, suddenly spoke with a disdainful tone, "Fong Rulong, stop mocking me. Do you really think there's no one in the Qin clan? I would like to see what kind of martial spirit you, Fang Rulong, have awoken to be so arrogant. Qin Chongkong no longer put Fang Rulong in his eyes. Previously, Qin Chongkong was afraid of the Fang clan because of Elder Bai Heng's support. However, now that the Qin clan was favored by Xiao Qingxue, there was no need for Qin Chongkong to care about the Fang clan's attitude. That was one of the reasons. Another reason was that Fang Rulong had a 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, but it was only a rumor, to be confirmed to be true. Furthermore, even if Fang Rulong possessed a 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, he was not afraid at all. Qin Chongkong was incomparably confident. With his trump card, defeating Bai Rulong would be a cinch. As Qin Chongkong's aura rose, the aura of the people of the Qin clan naturally rose as well. The deacons and elders of the Qin clan glanced at the people of the Fang clan with disdain and mockery. To join the Xianling clan, having the support of others was one thing, but the most important thing was the grade of one's martial spirit. How could Fang Rulong be compared to Qin Chongkong? Since when do clowns have the guts to show themselves? After hearing Qin Chongkong's words, Fang Rulong could no longer hold himself back. His face was filled with disdain, and he stared at Qin Chongkong as if he was looking at a piece of trash. This Qin Chongkong still thinks he's Qin Nan, who has a strong cultivation that Fang Rulong is afraid of. In his eyes, this Qin Chongkong was only a clown. Qin Chongkong's face turned furious after hearing this. Initially, the limelight of the first round of the trial had been stolen by Qin Nan, which was why Qin Chongkong mocked Fang Rulong, so that everyone's attention would be focused on him. However, what made Qin Chongkong extremely furious was that this guy Fang Rulong dared to mock him, and look at him with a disdainful gaze? This is too arrogant, not repentant even in the face of death. Almost at that instant, Fang Rulong's name on Qin Chongkong's must-kill list had risen to the same level as Qin Nan. Alright, let's prepare for the second round of the trial. The second round of the trial is very simple, you just have to unleash your martial spirit. Elder Bai Heng spoke at this moment, with his usual dignified tone. However, the people of the Qin family realized that Elder Bai Heng's ashen face had already disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a look of delight, as well as a murderous aura that was about to be released. This made the people of the Qin family somewhat puzzled. Shouldn't Elder Bai Heng be furious after being provoked by Qin Nan? Actually, just as the people of the Qin family had noticed, Bai Heng's heart was no longer angry. Instead, it was filled with delight and a murderous aura. How could Elder Bai Heng not be angry after being provoked by Qin Nan? However, since Xiao Qingxue had spoken, Bai Heng didn't dare act blindly without thinking. Love Go Xiao Sei W Chu. However, it was different now. The second round of the trial was a competition of martial spirit. Qin Nan was only a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit trash. What was there to be afraid of? Not only that, Fang Rulong was about to become the most eye-catching genius in this round's trial. Even in the Xianling clan, with Fang Rulong's talent, his status wouldn't be too low. Because of these two reasons, Xiao Qingxue would no longer protect Qin Nan and the Qin family. Without Xiao Qingxue's protection, why would he, Elder Bai Heng, be afraid of Qin Nan and the Qin family? Now, Elder Bai Heng couldn't wait to finish the second round as soon as possible. Then, he would suppress the Qin family and torture Qin Nan. He would let him remember for the rest of his life that nothing good would come out of offending Elder Bai Heng. Sure, I'll go first. Qin Chongkong couldn't wait either. After hearing Elder Bai Heng's words, he took a huge step forward, causing his aura to surge. 5 golden rays could be seen emitting from Qin Chongkong's back. A ferocious white tiger rose from the ground and let out a roar, emitting a ferocious aura that swept the entire place. 5 golden rays, a 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. At that instant, the atmosphere of the place turned lively, especially the people of the Qin family, who were extremely excited. On the other hand, the disciples, deacons, elders, etc. of the Fang clan wore unpleasant expressions after seeing the imperious 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. This was a 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, a top genius of Linshui City. 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, a beast-type martial spirit that specializes in killing. If combined with a powerful martial skill and the combination of man and beast, the power would be enhanced. Not bad. Xiao Qingshua's eyes were calm like water, as she commented in a calm tone. It was as if in her eyes, a 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit was not enough to attract her attention. However, the words caused Qin Changkong to feel extremely excited. Even Elder Xiao, who was more powerful than Elder Bai Heng, commented on his martial spirit in person. It was enough to prove that he, Qin Changkong, had received Xiao Qingshua's approval. "Thank you, Elder Xiao." Qin Changkong suppressed his excitement and expressed his gratitude. As he turned around, the pride on his face could no longer be concealed. He glanced toward Qin Nan and Fang Rulong. "Ha ha ha, I've unleashed my martial spirit. You guys should unleash your martial spirits too. We've seen Qin Nan's martial spirit. Therefore, I'm even more curious about what kind of martial spirit you, the young master of the Fang clan, have awakened." Qin Changkong's tone was filled with disdain and mockery. The people of the Qin family became even more excited. Their gazes toward the Fang clan became even more disdainful. "Hee hee." Fang Rulong suddenly laughed. His laughter was incomparably mocking and cruel. "Qin Changkong, you better remember this. In front of me, trash does not have any qualifications, including the qualifications to speak." "You?" Qin Changkong was instantly enraged. "Fang Rulong dared to call me trash? Calling me a person with a 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit trash? Even if you, Fang Rulong, have a 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, you shouldn't be so smug, right?" The people of the Qin family were enraged too. Why is this Fang Rulong as smug as Qin Nan? Does this Fang Rulong think he is someone important? All of a sudden, Fang Rulong made his move. His action was exactly the same as Qin Changkong's, as he took a big step forward. With a light boom, Fang Rulong's aura of the 3rd-layer body-tempering realm suddenly rose to the 4th-layer body-tempering realm. His aura was vigorous and powerful. Not only that, 6 golden rays were emitted from Fang Rulong's back. Within the golden rays, a golden giant hammer slowly appeared. A terrifying force was emitted from the giant hammer. At this moment, the whole place fell into dead silence. Qin Changkong stared with his eyes wide open. The people of the Qin family stared with their eyes wide open. Even the people of the Fang clan stared with blank expressions on their faces. 6 golden rays. A 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? Fang Rulong turned around and glanced at the crowd with a domineering expression. "First of all, I would like to apologize to everyone present. Only the patriarch and the elders of the Fang clan knew that I had awakened a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. The reason why I kept it a secret was to give everyone a surprise. Now that the surprise is out, I, Fang Rulong, would like to announce something. The number 1 genius of Linshui City is me, Fang Rulong. As for the rest of the disciples, they are all trash." The last sentence was like a clap of thunder. Chapter 28. Genius 1 Second. Remember Love Go Divided by Xiao? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. At that instant, the crowd was shocked, as if they were struck by lightning, causing their brains to buzz. Baidu search, Love Go Divided by Xiao Xiao Shua www.aichux. Som Fang Rulong is a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? How could Fang Rulong have a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? A 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit had not appeared in the entire Linshui City for a full 10 years. This time, Fang Rulong of the Fang clan had awakened such a powerful martial spirit. At that instant, the people of the Qin clan, whose minds had gone blank, shivered. Even Qin Tian and Tai San felt a chill down their spines. The reason for that was because the two of them had thought of what had happened earlier, and immediately came to a reasonable explanation. Why would Fang Rulong be so arrogant, to cripple a disciple of the Qin clan? Why would Elder Bai Heng side with the Fang clan so openly? All of this was because Fang Rulong had a 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, a true genius. On the other hand, Qin Changkong of the Qin clan was nothing in front of Fang Rulong. Although the difference between their martial spirits was only 1 grade, the difference between their statuses was like the gap between heaven and earth. Ha ha ha, well said. You are the #1 genius in Linshui City. The rest are trash. At that instant, Elder Bai Heng raised his head and burst out laughing. His imperious expression was restored, and he even asked casually, Elder Xiao, what do you think of this disciple? Not bad. Xiao Qingxue seemed to be unaware of it, as she slightly nodded her head. 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit with a tool-type martial spirit that specializes in attacking. His future achievement is close to martial ancestor realm. Who would have thought there would be a genius in this tiny Linshui city? It seems like this trip was not in vain. Although Xiao Qingxue's expression was calm, her words were full of compliments. Her attitude was different from when she was commenting on Qin Changkong. Although she only added a few compliments, the meaning behind it was very different. Especially Elder Bai Heng, who was overjoyed after hearing this. Weren't you siding with the Qin clan? Very well, let me tell you, the Qin clan is nothing in front of the Fang clan. However, the words caused the people of the Qin clan to recover from their shock. At that moment, the people of the Qin family, with the head Elder Qin Tieba as their leader, no longer had the arrogance they had before. Replacing it was a deathly gray color, and within their eyes there was deep fear. A 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, how powerful is that? They now understood that Qin Changkong was nothing in front of a 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. Just like what Fang Rulong had said, Qin Changkong was only a piece of trash in front of Fang Rulong, a piece of trash. Furthermore, only Fang Rulong had the chance to become a disciple of the Xianling clan. Fang Rulong possessed a 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, and was now a disciple of the Xianling clan. What kind of identity was that? Their Qin family could only look up to such a person. They had no power to fight back at all. The Qin clan was utterly defeated. You! Qin Changkong let out a cry. His face was filled with disbelief as he yelled, How is this possible? How could you possess a 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? I don't believe it. At that moment, Qin Changkong's heart had completely collapsed. Wasn't he, Qin Changkong, supposed to be the top genius of Linshui City? Shouldn't he be the one to become a disciple of the Xianling clan? Why did everything change all of a sudden? Why did Fang Rulong awaken a 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? Fang Rulong wore an indifferent expression as he stared at Qin Changkong with disdain. Qin Changkong, weren't you mocking me just now? How powerful do you think you are with a 5th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? Now you are just a piece of trash, and trash has no right to live in front of me. Fang Rulong's face turned hideous, as his murderous intent rose to the sky. The people of the Qin clan trembled, as their faces were filled with fear. They did not expect Fang Rulong to kill the top genius of the Qin clan as soon as he unleashed his martial spirit. When Qin Changkong was enveloped by this murderous aura, his entire body immediately turned ice-cold. Fear continued to spread in his heart. Without the slightest hesitation, he raised his head and screamed towards the high platform, Elder Xiao, quickly stop him. Although my martial spirit's grade is lower than his, I still have a 5th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, and am considered a top genius. Qin Changkong placed all his hopes on Xiao Qingxue. After hearing these words, Xiao Qingxue's attractive face remained calm, as if she did not care at all. Initially, she did not have a good impression of the Qin clan, but she did have a good impression of Qin Nan's decision, which was why she decided to help Qin Nan. Besides, she was here to recruit disciples on behalf of the Xianling clan. Fang Rulong possessed a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, which would grant him a decent position in the Xianling clan. Therefore, Xiao Qingxue would not stop him. In the martial world, the strong preyed on the weak. Qin Changkong sharply sensed Xiao Qingxue's attitude, causing his face to turn pale white, as if his soul had received a heavy blow, causing him to tremble violently, as if he had fallen into an icy cave. At that instant, Qin Changkong was utterly terrified, without the slightest hint of pride in his heart. He knew that this time, he had lost, and he had been utterly defeated. After seeing the murderous intent on Fang Rulong's face, Qin Changkong, who was surrounded by death and fear, finally lost his mind, as he knelt down on the spot and cried, "Brother Fang, young Master Fang Rulong, please don't kill me. As long as you don't kill me, I'll do anything you want. As long as you don't kill me, I'm willing to be your slave." The crowd stared with their eyes open wide. No one would have thought that the genius Qin Changkong, who possessed a 5th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, would kneel down on the ground and beg for his life like an ant. Trash! Fang Rulong stopped in his tracks, and burst out laughing with his head raised, full of arrogance. Wasn't the reason why he had been hiding for half a month, waiting for this day? Initially, he was planning to use Qin Changkong's corpse to display his dominance, but he did not expect Qin Changkong to kneel down and beg for his life. "Rulong, there's no need to kill him." At that instant, Fang Li spoke with a prideful expression. "A trash like him might be useful in the Fang clan. Let him stay. Now that you're going to be a disciple of the Xianling clan, he wouldn't dare to do anything reckless." Qin Changkong was overjoyed after hearing this, and immediately said, "Thank you, Patriarch. Thank you, Patriarch. I, Qin Changkong, will never betray the Fang clan, and will contribute wholeheartedly to the Fang clan." The people of the Qin family were dumbfounded. They did not expect Qin Changkong to betray the Qin family and join the Fang clan in such a short period of time. Qin Tian was enraged after seeing this, and glared at Fang Li. Haha, Qin Tian, you didn't expect this, right? Our Fang clan has been hiding for so long just to deal with the Qin family. Initially, with our strength, we could easily destroy the Qin family, but I don't want to. I want to destroy the Qin family completely, and force the members of the Qin family to be slaves." Fang Li let out a sinister laugh, and then glanced at the people of the Qin family, and said in a loud voice, "I'll give you one last chance, learn from Qin Changkong, leave the Qin family, and join our Fang clan. If you don't join us, be prepared to bear the wrath of our Fang clan." Fang Li's face was filled with a sinister smile as he said this. The faces of the people of the Qin family immediately changed, and a wave of fear surged into their hearts. In less than 5 breaths of time, some people could no longer hold themselves back. The first to betray was Qin Tieba, who said in a loud voice, "Patriarch Fang, my son Qin Changkong's choice represents my choice. I'm willing to join the Fang clan, and contribute to the Fang clan." As soon as Qin Tieba opened his mouth, the other deacons and elders of the Qin family immediately expressed their opinions. Yes, I'm also willing to join the Fang clan. F***K. I've wanted to leave the Qin family for a long time. Thank you, Patriarch Fang, for giving me this opportunity. I'll definitely do my best for the Fang clan until my death. Chapter 29. Geniuses remember love in 1 second divided by small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. No one could have expected that the Qin family, which used to be one of the two great families in Linshui City, would betray all of its deacons and elders and join the Fong family in less than half an incense stick's worth of time. Only a dozen or so Qin family disciples were left standing there with blank expressions on their faces. Even Fong Rulong and Fong Li were slightly stunned. When Fong Li came back to his senses, his face was flushed red as if he was drunk. He was extremely excited and said with disdain, "Qin Tian, do you see this? This is the Qin family that you worked so hard to develop for 10 years. Because of my words, everyone betrayed you. Do you understand now? Your Qin family is a pile of trash." When Qin Tian heard this, his expression changed. Anger surged in his heart, but more than that, he felt helpless and sorrowful. Because what Fong Li said was the truth, he couldn't refute it. Fong Li wasn't willing to stop there. Instead, he looked coldly at the dozen or so Qin family disciples and said in a cold voice, "What, do you bunch of disciples still want to stay in the Qin family? Haha, I'll give you one last chance. Join our Fong family. Otherwise, when the time comes, I'll make you wish you were dead." Fong Li directly threatened them. Although the dozen or so Qin family disciples who stayed behind had average cultivation and talent in the Qin family, Fong Li wanted everyone in the Qin family to betray them. Only in this way could it give Qin Tian an even greater blow, could it make him feel even better in his heart. No one expected that when Fong Li spoke, Qin Tieba and the others who had just betrayed the Qin family and joined the Fong family would all speak out in unison. "You bunch of trash, the head of the family is giving you a chance to join the Fong family. What are you waiting for? That's right. Why aren't you coming over? Are you waiting for death in the Qin family? I think you're tired of living. If you don't come over, this elder will be the first to kill you." The performance of Qin Tieba and the others made the crowd dumbfounded once again. Just how shameless and fawning were these people to be able to utter such words? Facing the threat of Fong Li, Qin Tieba and the others, the remaining disciples of the Qin family all revealed a trace of fear in their eyes. However, their legs seemed to be filled with lead as they stood firmly in their original position, not moving in the slightest. "I'm already very gratified by your attitude. Let's go now. The Qin family is finished," Qin Tian said at this moment. At this moment, his expression was incomparably calm and unperturbed. This was because Qin Tian already knew that the Qin family was completely finished this time. If these disciples were to remain in the Qin family, they would only be buried together with the Qin family. The gains did not make up for the losses. "Patriarch, there's no need to say any more. I won't leave." All of a sudden, one of the dozen or so disciples shouted in an extremely excited tone. The person who spoke had a weak aura, as if he would collapse at any moment. It was Qin Li, who had been crippled by Fong Rulong in one move. At this moment, Qin Li's eyes were bloodshot as he shouted, "Family head, the Qin family treated me with kindness, why would I betray them? In one's life, one does not ask to be indomitable, but to have a clear conscience. I, Qin Li, only have a cheap life, so what if I die? I'm a member of the Qin family, so we should live and die together. Live and die together. Live and die together. Live and die together." Qin Li's words seemed to have a magical power that engulfed the remaining members of the Qin family. The eyes of these disciples were bloodshot, and their expressions were surging. There was no longer any trace of fear in them. At this moment, even Qin Tieba's group, although they were already shameless enough, after hearing these words, their faces burned as if they were on fire, making them feel ashamed. Baidu search AI Go Xiao Shua www.aichux. Some, however, they still did not move. Compared to their lives, what was betrayal? Ha! Suddenly, Fong Rulong, who was on the high platform, laughed loudly. His laughter was incomparably ear-piercing, and his face was ferocious. "Live and die together," well said. "But what are you? You're a bunch of trash. Trash has no right to live and die together. In a moment I'll make you wish you were dead. At this moment, Fang Rulong's body was overflowing with hostility. Following this, Fang Rulong looked at Qin Nan, who had been silent all this time, and sneered. I've always remembered how you treated our Fang family so savagely. However, I'm not in a hurry to kill you now, because I want you to personally witness me becoming a disciple of the Xianling clan. Wait until I become a disciple of the Xianling clan, then I'll show you what cruelty is. After saying this, Fang Rulong suddenly turned around and looked at Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng. The hostility on his body was no longer present, and was replaced with respect. Fang Rulong said, Elders, I wonder if I'm qualified to become a disciple of the Xianling clan? In addition, before I become a disciple of the Xianling clan, I have a request. I hope that the two elders can suppress the people of the Qin family, so that I can have a good massacre, so that the two elders can know the power of my martial spirit. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere of the scene became tense. Qin Tian and Tai San exchanged glances at the same time. Although they knew that the Qin family's destruction was inevitable, Qin Tian and Tai San had originally planned to sacrifice their lives to save Qin Nan and the other members of the Qin family. However, if the two elders were to intervene now, how could Qin Nan and the other disciples survive? Xiao Qingxue frowned. She had always admired Qin Nan, and the actions of the disciples of the Qin family had also earned her approval. Now that Fang Rulong had spoken, he wanted to kill every one of the Qin family. How could Xiao Qingxue agree to that? Therefore, Xiao Qingxue didn't hesitate at all and said calmly, Fang Rulong, you can indeed become a disciple of the Xianling clan. However, after becoming a disciple of the Xianling clan, you will have to transcend the mortal world. Why do you insist on killing in the mortal world? When the time comes, it will affect your martial heart. Although these words were very tactful, Xiao Qingxue had undoubtedly expressed her attitude. Hearing these words, the expressions of Fang Rulong and Fang Li slightly changed. They didn't expect that Xiao Qingxue would still protect Qin Nan and the Qin family at this time. However, Elder Bai Heng's expression immediately changed after hearing these words. He had originally planned to kill Qin Nan to get his revenge. Now, Xiao Qingxue actually wanted to protect this trash? Therefore, Elder Bai Heng's tone was no longer polite. Elder Xiao, I don't agree with your words. Fang Rulong has a tool martial spirit, and he has always been in favor of killing. Moreover, the Qin family and the Qin family have a grudge against each other. If we don't destroy the Qin family, it won't be good for junior brother Fang Rulong's cultivation. Besides, junior brother Fang Rulong is a disciple of the Xianling clan. What's wrong with killing a few trash from the mortal world? Although Elder Bai Heng was afraid of Xiao Qingxue, he was obviously in the right. You, Xiao Qingxue, are protecting a mortal instead of helping a disciple of the sect? If this were to be spread out, it would not be good for Xiao Qingxue's reputation. A murderous intent flickered in Xiao Qingxue's eyes, but it was well hidden. She then let out a calm smile and said, Elder Bai Heng, there's no need to be so sarcastic. I'll make it clear today. I'm protecting Qin Nan and the Qin family. If Elder Bai Heng has the guts, then show me what you've got. Xiao Qingxue's tone was calm, and her voice was pleasant to the ears. However, it was like a bolt from the blue in Elder Bai Heng's ears. Elder Bai Heng's expression changed, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He did not expect Xiao Qingxue to be so domineering. If Xiao Qingxue were to insist, Elder Bai Heng would not dare to go against Xiao Qingxue's will even if he was given 10 guts. Even Fang Rulong and Fang Li's expressions changed greatly. They did not expect Xiao Qingxue to be so domineering and directly protect the trash of the Qin family. However, at this moment, a voice was heard all of a sudden, Wait, elders, I have something to ask. Chapter 30. Geniuses remember love in 1 second divided by Xiao? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. No one expected Qin Nan to take the initiative to speak at this moment. Elder Xiao Qingxue had already spoken out to protect the Qin clan, but Qin Nan took the initiative to speak now. What was he trying to do? Qin Nan, ask away. Xiao Qingxue's delicate face was still calm, as if she wasn't annoyed by Qin Nan's sudden interruption. I would like to ask Elder Bai Heng. Qin Nan looked at Bai Heng with sincerity, as if he was sincerely asking for advice. Elder Bai Heng, is it true that as long as I become a disciple of the Xianling clan, I can destroy other clans at will? Oh, the mortal clans that you are talking about. Elder Bai Heng's face darkened. He snorted. He didn't want to answer Qin Nan's question, but he didn't want to anger Xiao Qingxue at this moment. Therefore, he could only suppress his displeasure and said, "Of course, the disciples of the Xianling clan are superior. The mortal clans are dead." After saying this, Elder Bai Heng sneered. Could it be that trash Qin Nan could become a disciple of the Xianling clan? Qin Nan and the Qin family, it's already good enough that they can escape this disaster. I see. Qin Nan nodded as if he had suddenly understood. Everyone present was confused by these two sentences. What was Qin Nan trying to do? However, no matter what Qin Nan was trying to do, the Fang family members' faces darkened. Originally, Fang Rulong could destroy the Qin family once he became a disciple of the Xianling clan. However, they didn't expect Elder Xiao to protect the Qin family so strongly. On the contrary, Qin Tian and Tai San let out a sigh of relief. Baidu search AI go female sign Xiao say www.aichuxs. So although Qin Tieba and the others had betrayed the Qin family, as long as Qin Nan and the other Qin family members could survive, this was already the best outcome. Only Qin Tieba and Qin Chongkong had mixed feelings. Originally, they thought that the Qin family was doomed, so they betrayed the Qin family and joined the Fang family without hesitation. But he didn't expect that the Qin family would be so lucky as to receive Elder Zhao's personal protection, allowing them to avoid disaster. Forget it. Anyway, Fang Rulong is bound to be a disciple of the Xianling clan. His future is limitless. Furthermore, it's very possible that Elder Xiao is protecting the Qin family on a whim. He won't protect the Qin family forever. The Qin family will still be destroyed. Qin Tieba and the group of people secretly thought in their hearts. However, Qin Nan didn't pay attention to the atmosphere of the audience. Instead, he opened his mouth and said, "Elder Bai Heng, I still have a question. I hope that Elder Bai Heng can answer it for me." Elder Bai Heng's eyebrows twitched. He said coldly, "What's the question?" Qin Nan extended his hand and pointed at Fang Rulong. He said, "In the second stage of the competition, everyone has to release their martial spirits before the result can be determined. Why is it that after Fang Rulong released his martial spirit, I didn't and the other three didn't, yet he directly became a disciple of the Xianling clan?" His tone actually contained a reprimand. At this moment, Elder Bai Heng was stupefied. The Fang family members were stupefied. Qin Tian and the others were also stupefied. Baidu search AI go Xiao say www.aichuxs. So what did Qin Nan mean by that? Was he complaining that the competition was unfair? Fang Rulong released his 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. Wasn't the result of the competition obvious? Did Qin Nan, a 1st grade Huang-ranked trash, have the confidence to surpass Fang Rulong? What a joke. Even Xiao Qingxue frowned her eyebrows. She didn't expect this Qin Nan to question the fairness of the competition after she personally protected the Qin family. Was there any suspense to the result of the competition? "Don't be ridiculous," Xiao Qingxue said. "There's no need for the competition to continue. Fang Rulong does have the qualifications to become a disciple of the Xianling clan." Xiao Qingxue had personally spoken. Initially, she thought the matter was settled. However, she never expected Qin Nan to speak again. Elder Xiao, I don't agree with what you've just said. Qin Nan's expression was calm. The competition is not over yet. According to the rules, it should continue. At least, we should release our martial spirits and compete one by one to determine the winner. Now that the competition is not over yet, Fang Rulong might not be able to become a disciple of the Xianling clan. Everyone was stunned after hearing the words. Was this Qin Nan out of his mind, daring to contradict Elder Xiao in public? Didn't Qin Nan know that if it weren't for Elder Xiao's words, the Qin family would have been annihilated? Furthermore, what did Qin Nan's last sentence mean? Was Fang Rulong's 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit not enough to become a disciple of the Xianling clan? After hearing this, Qin Tian and Tai San's expressions changed greatly, and their hearts dropped to the bottom. Ai Chu Xiao Shua W. Chu Qin Nan's words were too stupid. Ha ha ha! Fang Rulong burst out laughing all of a sudden, his face filled with excitement. You're right, Qin Nan is absolutely right. The competition is not over yet, and my 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit is not necessarily the highest. Elder Xiao, I'm here to ask for your permission. I hope the competition can continue. Elder Bai Heng collected his thoughts and said with a smile, It's true that the competition should continue. Otherwise, it would be a great loss if we miss out on the more talented geniuses. Besides, the competition needs to be fair. The two of them echoed each other's words with great chemistry. This was because Fang Rulong and Elder Bai Heng were so happy that their hearts were about to blossom. Previously, with Xiao Qingshue's powerful protection, they could only suppress their anger, and could not harm Qin Nan's group. However, now that Qin Nan had contradicted Xiao Qingxue with such stupid words, would Xiao Qingxue still protect him? That's impossible. Therefore, Qin Nan's previous words were no doubt the same as digging his own grave. Since Qin Nan was digging his own grave, Bai Heng and Fang Rulong were more than willing to send him on his way. As expected, Xiao Qingshue's expression turned unpleasant. Initially, she was quite impressed with Qin Nan's fearless attitude, but she did not expect him to be so stupid and ignorant. For the sake of fairness, continue the martial spirit competition? Whose martial spirit is better than Fang Rulong's? That's just asking for humiliation. Fine. Xiao Qingxue gave Qin Nan an unpleasant look and said, Since you want to be fair, I'll give you fair treatment. Today, I want to see what kind of martial spirit you've awakened. After hearing this, Fang Rulong and Bai Heng became even more excited. As they had expected, due to Qin Nan's stupid actions, Xiao Qingxue did not have a good impression of him. If she did not have a good impression of him, Xiao Qingxue would not have protected Qin Nan. Without Xiao Qingshue's protection, what was Qin Nan? A piece of trash, an ant. Ha ha ha! Elder Bai Heng was extremely happy at this moment, as he let out a laugh and waved his hand. Let's continue with the competition. The rest of you, show me your martial spirits. I'm very curious to see if there are any martial spirits above 6th grade Huang ranked. After hearing Elder Bai Heng's words, the other two disciples of the Qin clan who had advanced to the second round did not dare to disobey. They both unleashed their 4th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. Soon, among the 5 people in the second round, only Qin Nan had not unleashed his martial spirit. Qin Nan, what are you waiting for? Unleash your trashy martial spirit. Fang Rulong held his head high and said with disdain, a piece of trash with a mere 1st grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. Where does your confidence come from? You dare to ask for fairness? Furthermore, you dare to say that I might not be able to become a disciple of the Xianling clan? Then I'd like to see what kind of ability you have to actually dare to say such a thing. Since the situation had developed to this point, Fang Rulong no longer suppressed his anger, and mocked Qin Nan. Elder Bai Heng and the others were also extremely excited. When Qin Tieba and the others saw that the opportunity had changed, they immediately added insult to injury and spoke out in unison. Is there a need to unleash his martial spirit? Qin Nan has a first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. We have all seen it with our own eyes. Ha ha ha, it seems like his martial spirit is a saber. A first-grade Huang-ranked saber. He's asking for humiliation. I think Elder Shao Qingxue will not protect him anymore. The crowd was filled with countless mocking voices, filled with schadenfreude. They couldn't be blamed. The main thing was that Qin Nan could have enjoyed Shao Qingxue's protection and escaped unscathed. However, Qin Nan didn't know what was good for him, and spoke such arrogant words. Could it be that Qin Nan, a first-grade Huang-ranked trashy martial spirit, could turn the tables around? Shao Qingxue slightly shook her head. Her eyes were filled with disappointment. She admired people who were upright, unyielding, and loyal. She didn't like people who were reckless, arrogant, and didn't know what was good for them. There was a fundamental difference between the two. Now, in Shao Qingxue's heart, Qin Nan was undoubtedly classified as the latter. However, at this moment Qin Nan smiled. His smile was frivolous, arrogant, and domineering. It was as if nothing could enter his eyes. Do you guys know that I've waited for this day for a long time? Qin Nan glanced at his father, Qin Tian, and Tai San as he said this. However, his words were filled with sincerity. Then, Qin Nan turned around and glanced at the people of the Fang clan, Qin Tieba and the others, and said, "Do you guys know that I've been waiting for this day too?" The words were said with a murderous aura and a ferocious aura. Then, he raised his head and looked at Shao Qingxue and Bai Heng and said, "Elders, do you guys know how long I've been waiting for this day?" He repeated the words 3 times. As soon as the last sentence was uttered, an aura was emitted from Qin Nan's back. A domineering aura was emitted, and a yellow glow was emitted. A magnificent, tall, and ancient human figure rose from the ground and floated behind, looking down at the ground. Chapter 31. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with interesting novels to read. When Qin Nan met Fang Rulong at the Longhu mountain range, he already knew that Fang Rulong possessed a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. He also guessed that Fang Rulong was hiding his martial spirit's rank in order to deal with the Qin family. Therefore, Qin Nan watched everything that happened coldly. When Fang Li threatened the Qin family, Qin Nan did not unleash his martial spirit. The main reason was that he wanted to see how many people in the Qin family would betray the Qin family. In the end, Qin Nan felt both disappointed and relieved at the same time. He was disappointed because the deacons and elders of the Qin family had all betrayed the Qin family. What made him feel gratified was that the dozen or so disciples actually insisted on staying in the Qin clan even when facing the destruction of their clan. However, Qin Nan did not expect Shao Qingxue to protect the Qin family. This caused Qin Nan to feel grateful, and he took the initiative to step forward. He would not allow the Qin family to be humiliated by the Fang family. He wanted the Fang family to pay back everything they had done to the Qin family 100-fold. Therefore, Qin Nan stepped forward and unleashed his martial spirit. At this moment, 6 golden rays were emitted from Qin Nan's back, causing the illusionary divine battle spirit to look extremely majestic, which swept across the entire place. At this moment, the entire place was dead silent. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open, their faces filled with astonishment. 6 golden rays. The martial spirit unleashed by Qin Nan had 6 golden rays. Doesn't this mean that Qin Nan's martial spirit is 6th-grade Huang-ranked? How is this possible? Doesn't Qin Nan only have a 1st-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? How can he have a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? The entire place was dead silent, as if a great silence had descended upon the place. No one dared to speak. No one dared to utter a single word. The scene before them was too shocking. Especially Qin Tieba and the other members of the Qin family. They were so shocked that their minds went blank. They had seen with their own eyes that Qin Nan's martial spirit was only first-grade Huang ranked. But now, why did Qin Nan's martial spirit reach 6th-grade Huang ranked? Why is this happening? How is this possible? After recovering from the shock, Fang Rulong screamed hysterically, "How could you possess a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? When you awakened your martial spirit, everyone in the Qin family saw it with their own eyes. You're only a 1st-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit trash. You're obviously just trash. Shut up." A voice could be heard, filled with an imperious aura. The one who spoke was none other than Xiao Qingxue. After recovering from the initial shock, a smile appeared on Xiao Qingxue's face, like a blossoming flower. At this moment, Xiao Qingxue finally understood why Qin Nan dared to kill the genius disciples of the Fang clan despite having the support of Bai Heng. She also understood why Qin Nan insisted on a fair trial. She also understood why Qin Nan was so calm from the beginning until the end. All of this was because Qin Nan possessed a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit and had mastered the greater success stage of one with the weapon, with a cultivation of the 5th-layer body-tempering realm. These were the reasons why Qin Nan was so confident. Xiao Qingxue did not care if Qin Nan's martial spirit was a 1st-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. She only knew that the current Qin Nan possessed the talent of a genius, and was even more dazzling than Fang Rulong. This guy is really good at hiding his talent. Xiao Qingxue grumbled in her heart, but at this moment she was undoubtedly happy, and broke the silence. "Elder Bai Heng, I now feel that Qin Nan is more qualified to become a disciple of the Xianling clan. What do you think?" After hearing this, Bai Heng immediately recovered from the shock, and his face turned unpleasant as if he had just eaten something filthy. How could Qin Nan possess a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? What is going on? After hearing this, the crowd finally recovered from the shock. Although their minds were filled with astonishment and doubts, they only knew one thing. Qin Nan had surpassed Fang Rulong and was going to become a disciple of the Xianling clan. Fang Li and the people of the Fang clan had pale faces. Qin Tieba, Qin Chongkong, and the others had pale faces too. They had never thought that a genius would appear in the Qin clan that they had just betrayed. Furthermore, this genius was the trash Qin Nan that they had constantly mocked. Unlike them, Qin Tian and Tai San's minds were in a daze. They only felt that everything in front of them was like a dream. How did the trash in the past become a genius all of a sudden? "I don't accept this!" Fang Rulong suddenly screamed, and his aura skyrocketed, as he yelled in a hoarse voice, "Why is Qin Nan qualified to become a disciple of the Xianling clan? He is clearly a trash. He must have used some kind of trick to raise his martial spirit to such a high level. He definitely doesn't have a 6th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit." Xiao Qingxue frowned her eyebrows and stared coldly at Fang Rulong. However, at this moment Qin Nan, who had just experienced a series of shocking events, suddenly spoke. "Fang Rulong, you don't accept this, right?" As soon as Fang Rulong saw Qin Nan, it was as if he had seen an irreconcilable enemy. His eyes turned red and he yelled with all his might, "Yes, I don't accept this. You're trash. You can't be a genius. You're trash. You should know that you're trash, and you'll always be trash." At this moment, Fang Rulong was completely hysterical. This was all because Qin Nan was only a mere ant. How did he become so powerful all of a sudden, to the point that he was even stronger than Fang Rulong? Therefore, Fang Rulong had gone crazy. "Very well, I'll make you accept this today." Qin Nan let out a hollow laugh, and the aura emitted from his body skyrocketed once again. The original yellow light emitted by the divine battle spirit increased by another ray, resulting in a total of 7 rays of yellow light. An invisible aura was emitted from Qin Nan's body. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded, including Xiao Qingxue, whose face was filled with great astonishment. 7 rays of yellow light. A 7th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? Qin Nan's martial spirit is not 6th grade Huang-ranked, but 7th grade Huang-ranked? Fang Rulong, who was in a frenzy, was completely stunned by the aura. His eyes were filled with confusion, as if he had no idea what had just happened. What the hell just happened? How did a 1st grade Huang-ranked trash turn into a 7th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? Why aren't you talking? I'll ask you one more time, are you still convinced? Qin Nan suddenly let out a roar. The original 7 rays of yellow light emitted from his back, and the 8th ray of yellow light rose and blossomed. The aura emitted from the divine battle spirit increased exponentially. The divine battle spirit was fully unleashed. Now tell me, are you convinced? Qin Nan calmly said. Fang Rulong was completely dumbfounded. His mind went blank, and he was unable to answer Qin Nan's words. Not only that, everyone's mind went blank, and even their souls were filled with endless astonishment. 8 rays of yellow light. Qin Nan's martial spirit has 8 rays of yellow light. Doesn't this mean that Qin Nan's martial spirit is 8th grade Huang ranked? Shush! Chapter 32. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? We provide you with interesting novels to read. For Xiao Qingxue, even a 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit was only slightly appreciated by her. However, an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit was enough to attract her attention. An 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, how significant was that? Even in the Xianling clan, an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit was enough to be considered a top genius. For example, Xiao Qingxue's own martial spirit was 8th grade Huang rank. Qin Nan Yu. Xiao Qingxue was indeed the top genius of the Xianling clan, as she quickly regained her calm. However, a hint of resentment could be seen in her eyes, as if she was a little girl. You've hidden your strength well. Qin Nan let out a smile and brought his fists together. Elder Xiao, I didn't mean to hide my strength, please forgive me. By the way, Elder Xiao, is it possible for me to become a disciple of the Xianling clan with my martial spirit's grade? After hearing this, Xiao Qingxue withdrew her resentment and faced the crowd, before she yelled, "This time, the Xianling clan's disciple recruitment ceremony will only recruit 1 disciple. Now, as the outer disciple elder of the Xianling clan, I hereby announce that Qin Nan is the winner of this year's disciple recruitment ceremony, and is now an outer disciple of the Xianling clan." The yell was accompanied by a powerful aura, which echoed among the crowd like a clap of thunder. The crowd, who was immersed in endless astonishment, was awakened by the yell. They could only see Qin Tian, Tai San, and the others wearing confused expressions, as if they had yet to recover from the shock. A love go little say, W. Chu. However, Bai Heng's face turned pale. Fang Rulong, Fang Li, and the rest of the people of the Fang clan had pale faces too. Qin Chongkong, Qin Tieba, and the rest of the people of the Qin clan had pale faces too. Qin Tian, Tai San, and the rest were confused because they could not understand how Qin Nan, who was originally a 1st grade Huang-ranked waste, suddenly became an 8th grade Huang-ranked peerless genius, and a disciple of the Xianling clan. As for Bai Heng, Fang Rulong, Fang Li, Qin Chongkong, Qin Tieba, and the rest, they felt that they had offended someone they should not have. An 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, a martial spirit that only existed in legends, was known as a true peerless genius. In Linshui City, he was the only outer sect disciple selected to become the mystic spirit sect's outer sect disciple. No matter which one of these 2 identities it was, they didn't dare to offend them at all. However, they had seriously offended Qin Nan. They had mocked Qin Nan, suppressed Qin Nan, and even tried to kill Qin Nan. Would the current Qin Nan let them go? Qin Nan let out a faint smile as he brought his fists together toward Xiao Qingxue to express his gratitude. Following this, Qin Nan glanced toward Bai Heng, who was on the platform, and said, Elder Bai Heng, I've asked you before, is it not a problem for you to kill a few ordinary people after becoming a disciple of the Xianling clan? Bai Heng was startled by the sudden question, but he quickly reacted and nodded his head like a chick pecking rice. Yes, that's the case. Junior brother Xiao, what mortal enemies do you want to deal with? You can tell me, and I'll help you. Although my cultivation is not high, it's more than enough to deal with these ordinary people. Almost at that instant, Bai Heng had completely abandoned the Fong clan, and even showed a hint of flattery toward Qin Nan. Bai Heng was not to be blamed, as an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit was too powerful. Others might not know, but Bai Heng clearly knew that now that Qin Nan had awakened an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, once he joined the Xianling clan, his status would be higher than his. This was because Bai Heng only possessed a 6th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. Therefore, with Qin Nan's identity, dealing with Bai Heng would be a piece of cake. An 8th grade Huang-ranked genius and an ordinary 6th grade Huang-ranked disciple, the sect would choose the former without hesitation and abandon the latter. Thank you, Elder Bai Heng. Qin Nan let out a calm smile, and did not reject Elder Bai Heng's kindness. Although Bai Heng was on the must-kill list in Qin Nan's mind, Bai Heng was still a disciple of the Xianling clan, and his cultivation had reached the peak of the Xiantian realm. Qin Nan would not be able to deal with him now. Therefore, Qin Nan decided to take his time to deal with this Bai Heng after joining the Xianling clan. Following this, Qin Nan glanced toward the people of the Fong clan and said, The Fong clan is well aware of what happened here today. Now, the Fong clan will have to give me an explanation. Fong Rulong, Fong Li, and the others shuddered as fear grew in their hearts. Explanation? How could they explain it? Previously, they had teamed up with Elder Bai Heng to threaten the Qin clan. In the end, after Fong Rulong unleashed his martial spirit, they forced the majority of the Qin clan to betray them. If it weren't for Qin Nan's sudden appearance, the Fong clan would have eliminated the Qin clan for sure. With such a deep hatred, how were they going to explain themselves? At that instant, Fong Rulong, Fong Li, and the others could only look at Qin Nan with pleading eyes. They clearly knew that the lives of the entire Fong clan, and their own, were all in the hands of Qin Nan. Young Master Qin Nan. Suddenly, a loud voice could be heard. You can't let the Fong clan go. Previously, the Fong clan threatened us to betray the Qin clan and join them. At that time, I was thinking that one day, I would rise again and take revenge for the Qin family. Who would have thought that young Master Qin Nan would rise again? No one had expected the one who spoke to be Qin Chongkong. Qin Chongkong danced with joy, with a blushing face, as if every word he said was from the bottom of his heart. Everyone was stunned. They had never expected such a shameless person to exist in this world. After seeing this, Qin Nan suddenly let out a cold laugh. Shut up. Now that Qin Nan had unleashed his 8th grade Huang-ranked divine battle spirit, every word he spoke was filled with a powerful suppression. When those 4 words were spoken, Qin Chongkong's expression abruptly changed. He felt as if there was an invisible mountain pressing down on his body, causing him to not dare to say another word. Qin Nan stared coldly at Qin Chongkong, Qin Tieba, and the others and said, Now, you don't have to give me any other excuses. I only know that you have tried to impeach my father, and I have tried to persuade you. Furthermore, when the disciples of the Qin clan were crippled, not only did you not do anything, you even tried to curry favor with Bai Heng. Finally, when the Qin clan was threatened by the Fong clan, each of you betrayed the Qin clan without any hesitation, and joined the Fong clan. Remember this, from that moment onward, all of you are no longer part of the Qin clan. After hearing these words, Qin Chongkong, Qin Tieba, and the others' faces turned ashen, filled with endless regret. Previously, when they were still in the Qin clan, Qin Chongkong had thought himself to be the top genius after awakening his 5th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. He had mocked Qin Nan and made things difficult for Qin Nan. He had even teamed up with his father to impeach Qin Tian. Now that Qin Chongkong and Qin Tieba recalled it, they could only find it ridiculous. They dared to mock an 8th-grade Huang-ranked genius as trash? They dared to oppose an 8th-grade Huang-ranked genius multiple times? Not only Qin Chongkong and Qin Tieba, but the deacons and elders of the Qin clan were also filled with regret. Previously, when they were still in the Qin clan, Qin Nan had tried to persuade them in the conference hall, but none of them listened. In their eyes, Qin Nan was a piece of trash, a piece of trash. Furthermore, Qin Chongkong, Qin Tieba, and the Qin clan were filled with regret. Why didn't they choose to stand with the Qin clan when they were threatened by the Fang clan? Why didn't they choose to die rather than submit? If they didn't betray the Qin clan, it was highly possible that Qin Nan would spare their lives for the sake of the clan. However, in this world, there was no room for regret. They could only blame themselves for bullying the weak, fawning over the strong and being cowards. Qin Nan stared coldly at the people of the Fang clan, Qin Tieba and the others, and said, "All of you, from today onward, cripple your own cultivation and get out of Linshui City. The time limit is 3 incense sticks time. If you don't do it within the time limit, don't blame me for being merciless. If anyone doesn't agree, feel free to come forward, and I'll grant you death." Each word was filled with a murderous aura. The people of the Fang clan, Qin Tieba, Qin Chongkong, and the others all lowered their heads with pale faces. They had no other choice now. On the contrary, Qin Nan's suggestion was the best choice for them. At least, they would be able to keep their lives. Chapter 33. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/little? We provide you with interesting novels to read. Without any suspense, under the supervision of Bai Heng, the people of the Fang clan, Qin Tieba, and the others all chose to cripple their own cultivations and leave Linshui City. Following this, the events that took place during the Xianling clan's disciple recruitment ceremony were spread throughout Linshui City. The entire Linshui City was in an uproar. The famous number 1 trash Qin Nan was not trash, but a peerless genius with an 8th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? The Fang clan, one of the 2 great clans, was destroyed just like that, and the Qin clan became the true dominator of Linshui City? Without a doubt, all of these events had shocked everyone, including the entire city. 3 hours later, in the conference hall of the Qin clan, Qin Tian sat on the main seat, while Shao Qingxue and Bai Heng sat beside him. Below them were the remaining disciples of the Qin clan, and Qin Nan. Qin Tian's face was flushed red, as if he was drunk, as he mumbled, who would have thought that I, Qin Tian, would have such a peerless genius as my son?" Tai San and the disciples did not mind at all. The excitement on their faces did not fade away. For them, everything that happened today was like a dream, as if they were dreaming. Qin Tian, Tai San, and the disciples all thought that the Qin clan would be destroyed today, and that they would die for sure. Who would have thought that Qin Nan would suddenly appear, and turn the situation around like a god of battle? Not only that, the future of the Qin clan was even more unimaginable. Shao Qingxue, who was sitting at the side, smiled after hearing this. She then thought of something and asked curiously, "By the way, Qin Nan, didn't they say that your martial spirit was only 1st-grade Huang-ranked? What's going on?" After hearing Shao Qingxue's question, Bai Heng, Qin Tian, Tai San, and the others all pricked up their ears and stared at Qin Nan with sparkling eyes. Obviously, Shao Qingxue had asked the question that was on their minds. How did Qin Nan suddenly become a genius with an 8th-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit from a 1st-grade Huang-ranked trash? Qin Nan smiled calmly. He had already thought of how to answer the question. He said, "When I was young, I was struck by lightning. Since then, a secret art has appeared in my mind. This secret technique doesn't have any other abilities, but it can perfectly conceal the rank of a martial spirit. Therefore, during the martial spirit awakening ceremony, they were able to see my first-grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. Concealing the rank of his martial spirit? Everyone came to a sudden realization, but no one doubted it. In this world, there were all kinds of opportunities and mysteries. It was not impossible for there to be such a secret technique from the heavenly thunder. Furthermore, other than this explanation, they could not think of any other reason. After all, the divine battle spirit was an ownerless martial spirit that had descended from the heavens, yet it was still able to level up. This was simply too unimaginable. In other words, your cultivation was not due to any fortuitous encounters, but was cultivated by yourself? Qin Tian asked all of a sudden. Yes, I did not have any fortuitous encounters. It was all cultivated by myself. Qin Nan nodded his head, and said apologetically, the main reason is that I met Feng Shui at the Longhu mountain range, and learned of the Feng clan's plans. Therefore, I decided to conceal my martial spirit. I hope everyone can understand. It's fine, Bai Heng, who was at the side, immediately said, with junior brother Qin's talent, a mere Feng clan is nothing to him. This time, I, Bai Heng, would like to apologize. I was completely bewitched by the Feng clan. Love Go Xiao Sag Wu. If junior brother Qin had told me earlier, I would have annihilated the Feng clan without hesitation. While Bai Heng was apologizing, he also tried to flatter Qin Nan. Qin Nan smiled indifferently, but did not say anything. For someone like Qin Nan who held grudges, no matter how eloquent Bai Heng was, he would still punish him when the time came. Qin Nan, now that you are an outer disciple of the Xianling clan, there is something I must tell you, Xiao Qingxue said with a serious expression. Xiao Qingxue straightened her expression and said, in these 2 days, you should quickly settle the matters at home and follow me to the mystic spirit sect, as we don't have much time left. Qin Tian, who was at the side, immediately said, there is no need to stay for 2 more days. Qin Nan, you will leave tomorrow and follow Elder Xiao to the Xianling clan. Don't worry, no one will dare to touch the Qin family now. Qin Tian's face was filled with pride as he said this. Tai San and the other disciples also nodded, their faces filled with determination. In the entire Linshui city, or even the entire Luaha kingdom, how many people would dare to touch the Qin family now? Qin Nan took a deep breath, looked at Qin Tian, Tai San, and the rest of the Qin family disciples, and said solemnly, if that's the case, then I won't stay any longer. Father, third uncle, and all of you, take good care of yourselves. After I enter the Xianling clan, as long as I have the time, I will definitely come back to visit all of you. Qin Tian, Tai San, and the rest of the disciples revealed gratified smiles when they heard this. Qin Tian had given birth to a son like Qin Nan, and the Qin family had given birth to a genius like Qin Nan. What else could they not be satisfied with? All right, take the 2 elders and take a look around the Qin family. Qin Tian then waved his hand. Now that Qin Tian had just become a disciple of the Xianling clan, no matter what, he had to build a good relationship with Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng. I'll stay. Since I have some cultivation and experience, I can discuss it with all of you, Bai Heng quickly said. Qin Nan nodded, and didn't say anything else. He walked out of the conference hall with Xiao Qingxue following behind him. Xiao Qingxue, who was in front of Qin Nan, walked with light step. Her pair of beautiful eyes looked around, observing the scenery around the Qin family. However, the corners of her eyes were more focused on Qin Nan's figure. The scenery of the Qin family was nothing to her. However, Qin Nan, the guy who had repeatedly surprised her, had aroused Xiao Qingxue's interest. It was also Qin Nan's first time being alone with a young and beautiful girl. He couldn't help but feel uneasy, and said with a wry smile, Senior Sister Xiao, don't keep looking at me, so you can feel embarrassed. Xiao Qingxue covered her mouth and giggled, Don't call me senior sister, it's so unpleasant. Just call me Qingxue. Qin Nan was slightly stunned after seeing the flower-like smile. By the way, Qin Nan, you mentioned that you've acquired a secret technique that allows you to hide the rank of your martial spirit, right? Xiao Qingxue asked. Yes. Then tell me, is your martial spirit really only 8th grade Huang ranked? Are you hiding something else? Xiao Qingxue's eyes flickered with excitement. Qin Nan was shocked after hearing this, and immediately said with a wry smile, if I had a stronger martial spirit, why would I need to hide it? Xiao Qingxue instinctively wanted to refute, but she nodded her head in the end. She did not say anything further, but her heart was filled with a hint of regret. An 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit was extremely powerful. It was already impressive for Qin Nan to possess such a martial spirit. And she still thought that Qin Nan's martial spirit was stronger than 8th grade Huang-ranked? Obviously not. However, Xiao Qingxue did not know that in just a few breaths' time, Qin Nan's heartbeat had doubled, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Qin Nan did not expect Xiao Qingxue's intuition to be so accurate. The potential of the divine battle spirit was indeed higher than 8th grade Huang ranked. Furthermore, 8th grade Huang ranked was only the beginning for the divine battle spirit. Why are you sweating? Xiao Qingxue glanced at the sweat on Qin Nan's forehead and asked. However, she did not continue to ask, but said in a serious tone, Qin Nan, you have to remember, even though you have an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, you can't be arrogant in the Xianling clan. You have to cultivate diligently, or else you will regret it in the future. After saying this, Xiao Qingxue paused for a second before she continued in a soft tone, you have to know that there is always someone better than you. The Xianling clan is only the beginning in this Kanglan continent. Qin Nan was startled after hearing this, before he nodded his head heavily. Following this, Qin Nan ignored Qin Tian's advice and stayed at the Qin clan for a day. The next morning, he left for the Xianling clan with Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng. However, what Qin Nan did not expect was that when he left Linshui City, an accident took place. On top of the walls of Linshui City, Qin Tian was leading the way, while Tai San and the disciples of the Qin clan were standing on his left and right. Not only that, countless cultivators from Linshui City rushed over like a tide and gathered at the left and right sides of the Qin clan. In less than half the time it took for an incense to burn, there were more than 10,000 people. From afar, it looked like a human wall had been formed on top of the walls. The people of Linshui City were all here to see him off. Qin Nan stared at the scene with a blank expression. Father, Qin Nan, these cultivators of Linshui City were not summoned by me, they are here to see you off voluntarily. Qin Tian yelled with a prideful expression. The cultivators of Linshui City behind Qin Tian were all extremely excited. They looked at Qin Nan as if they were looking at a king in their hearts. The current Qin Nan was no longer a genius in their hearts, but a true legend. Therefore, they all came to see him off and shouted at the top of their lungs. Young Master Qin Nan, I wish you all the best. Haha, young Master Qin Nan, after you become an expert, you must take care of us. I told my son that his future goal is young Master Qin Nan. Young Master Qin Nan, we will wait for your triumphant return. As if he was affected by the emotions of the cultivators of Linshui City, Qin Tian looked at Qin Nan not far away. The sadness of separation and all kinds of complicated emotions rose in his heart. He said loudly, Qin Nan, you must remember that you are my son, Qin Tian's son. In the future, you will definitely become an expert. Therefore, don't give up, don't be afraid, take one step at a time and walk out of your life. Qin Nan looked at the scene on top of the city wall, and heard the words of these strangers and his father. Suddenly, a heroic spirit surged in his heart. Qin Nan nodded his head heavily, before he turned around and left. He didn't say anything, and only left the crowd with the view of his back. Every step he took was unusually firm. Chapter 34. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. The Xianling clan is located in the north of the Luoha kingdom. We will arrive there in about 9 days and 9 nights. Love go little say, qua day later, on a plane, Bai Hing said to Qin Nan. 9 days and 9 nights? If that's the case, I'll just cultivate along the way. Qin Nan nodded his head and unleashed the divine battle spirit from his back, which absorbed the qi of the heavens and earth at a terrifying speed. Bai Hing stared with his eyes open wide. His heart was filled with jealousy and a hint of fear. An 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit is indeed powerful. Xiao Qingxue frowned her eyebrows and said with a pleasant voice, Qin Nan, it's useless for you to cultivate like this. Be it the body-tempering realm, the Xiantian realm, or even the martial emperor realm, you need to calm your mind during your cultivation. If you cultivate while walking, you will consume the qi you've absorbed, which will prevent you from achieving the body-tempering realm. I see. Qin Nan was secretly impressed. Xiao Qingxue is indeed a martial emperor realm cultivator, with a rich experience in cultivation. Just like what she said, his cultivation with the divine battle spirit did not have any effect at all. Last time I saw you fighting, you didn't seem to be practicing any movement technique. Xiao Qingxue let out a bright smile, which stunned Qin Nan and Bai Hing. I happen to have an ultimate martial skill here, called Mystical 8 Steps. Take it and cultivate it. Ultimate martial skill? Qin Nan was shocked after seeing the manual. He did not expect Xiao Qingxue to be so generous, causing him to hesitate. What are you hesitating for? Hurry up and take it. Xiao Qingxue rolled her eyes at Qin Nan. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat after seeing Xiao Qingxue's feminine attitude, but he quickly calmed down and received the manual. However, Qin Nan swore in his heart that he would definitely repay Xiao Qingxue one day. After all, Xiao Qingxue had helped the trash Qin Nan during the disciple recruitment ceremony, and even protected the Qin family. Now, she had even given him an ultimate martial skill. Everything she had done was purely out of friendship. Bai Hing, who was watching from the side, was even more envious. Not only did this Qin Nan have such talent, he even managed to win the favor of Xiao Qingxue. In the Xianling clan, even the top geniuses were not favored by Xiao Qingxue. What kind of luck did this Qin Nan have? Xiao Qingxue continued, Qin Nan, you have to remember that there are 2 basic points in a battle. The first is a killing move. The second is speed. Now that you have grasped great perfection of one with the saber, the might of your killing move is already very strong within the same realm. Therefore, you have to study this mystical 8 steps carefully to increase your speed. Qin Nan kept nodding his head as he listened. Even Bai Hing was listening attentively. It was rare to have a martial emperor realm expert guiding one's cultivation. Following this, in order to let Qin Nan learn the mystical 8 steps, the 3 of them rested in a small woods. Now, let's see what's the secret behind this mystical 8 step. Qin Nan held the ancient book in his hands as his eyes emitted a fiery glow. Following this, he began to flip through the pages of the ancient book. It was as if he were drunk, as he was immersed in the process, causing his body to emit an aura of isolation from the world. Xiao Qingxue and Bai Hing were stunned at the same time. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. Xiao Qingxue's eyes glittered as she said, I didn't expect Qin Nan to be so fond of martial skills. In less than a breath's time, he was able to enter the state of one with the mind. Even I wouldn't be able to do that. For some reason, Bai Hing felt extremely unpleasant after hearing this. Why is this Qin Nan so outstanding in other aspects when he already has an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? On top of that, Bai Hing's feelings of humiliation grew stronger as time went by, but he did not dare to show it on his face. I should think of a way to vent my anger. After all, my big brother is an outer sect elder of the mystic spirit sect. How can he be so sullen? Bai Hing thought to himself. His eyes started to move, and suddenly, his eyes lit up. Bai Hing let out a smile and said, I didn't expect senior sister Xiao to have such a high opinion of junior brother Qin Nan. Senior sister Xiao, I'm afraid the rest of the time will be boring. Why don't we have a bet? A bet? Xiao Qingxue glanced at him calmly. Bai Hing nodded his head and said, Junior brother Qin Nan is currently learning the mystical 8 steps. Why don't we bet on when junior brother Qin Nan will be able to learn it? Let's both guess the time. Whoever is closer to the time wins. Baidu search AI Go Xiao Shua www.aichux.com. After hearing this, Xiao Qingxue's interest was piqued, and she said, This bet sounds interesting. Let's bet 100 Xiantian pills. 100 Xiantian pills? Bai Heng's expression changed slightly after hearing this. Xiantian pills were similar to body-tempering pills. As its name suggested, it was a pill used by Xiantian realm cultivators to cultivate. However, the price of Xiantian pills was extremely high. 1 Xiantian pill was equivalent to 100 body-tempering pills. Sometimes there was no market for them. Even for Bai Heng, it would be painful to take out 100 Xiantian pills at once. Fine, let's bet 100 Xiantian pills. Bai Heng clenched his teeth and made up his mind, I'll judge first. If I were to learn this mystical 8 steps myself, it would take me at least 3 days. However, since junior brother Qin Nan possesses an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, and is able to enter the state of one with the mind, the time required would be greatly reduced. Therefore, I'll bet on 1 day. After saying this, a confident smile appeared on Bai Heng's face. The reason why he was willing to bet with Xiao Qingxue was because he had once met a top genius with an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, who was able to enter the state of one with the mind when learning a martial skill. Previously, Bai Heng had personally witnessed this genius comprehending a martial skill, and the time it took him to do so was exactly a day. Therefore, Bai Heng was confident enough to bet 100 Xiantian pills with Xiao Qingxue. After hearing this, Xiao Qingxue frowned her eyebrows. She had also estimated the time required to learn the martial skill in 1 day, but since Bai Heng had said it, she could not say it was 1 day. Upon having this thought, Xiao Qingxue raised her head and glanced at Qin Nan, who was still learning the martial skill. She then recalled the series of surprises that had taken place at the disciple recruitment ceremony, and said, If that's the case, I'll bet on 11 hours. When Bai Heng heard this, he was so surprised that he almost jumped up. Comprehending an ultimate martial skill in 21 hours? Even a 9th grade Huang-ranked genius would need a total of 11 hours to comprehend an ultimate martial skill in the state of one with the mind and body. How could Qin Nan be comparable to a 9th grade Huang-ranked genius? Xiao Qingxue was aware of all this, but for some reason, she had an inexplicable trust in Qin Nan. I hope you can create a miracle, Xiao Qingxue murmured in her heart, as she stared at Qin Nan with sparkling eyes. Following this, Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng both sat down and started cultivating. After all, learning a martial skill was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Time gradually passed, and after 5 hours had passed, the aura of Qin Nan, who was immersed in the state of one with the mind, shuddered all of a sudden. Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng were aware of this, and opened their eyes in astonishment. Are you serious? Qin Nan learned a martial skill in 10 hours? Following this, the aura emitted from Qin Nan's body was soon withdrawn, as he returned to a state of calmness. Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng collected their thoughts and shook their heads. Learning mystical 8 steps in 10 hours? Even a super genius with a 10th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit would not be able to do this. How did Qin Nan do it? However, at that instant Qin Nan's figure suddenly rose from the ground and closed the book, as he said with a surprised expression, as expected of an ultimate martial skill, extremely mysterious. It took me 10 hours to master the basics. Qingxue, what's with your expressions? Qin Nan felt strange. Why did Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng's expressions turn stiff? Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng were both shocked. Qin Nan did it? Did he do something that even a 10th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit genius could not do? Bai Heng was different. Apart from being shocked, his heart was filled with endless grievances. Qin Nan had mastered the mystical 8 steps in 5 hours. Didn't that mean Xiao Qingxue had won the bet? Furthermore, what made Bai Heng even more depressed was that this Qin Nan took 10 hours to learn an ultimate martial skill, and he was still surprised. Did he think that 10 hours was a long time to learn an ultimate martial skill? Upon having this thought, Bai Heng felt like cursing out loud. Chapter 35. Genius remembers love in 1 second/small? We provide you with interesting novels to read. Xiao Qingxue covered her mouth and said, I just had a bet with Bai Heng. I bet you would take 21 hours, while he bet you would take 24 hours to comprehend the martial skill. The one who was the closest would win, and the bet was 100 Xiantian pills. From the looks of it, I've won. 100 Xiantian pills? Qin Nan raised his eyebrows. He clearly knew the value of Xiantian pills, but he had never seen it with his own eyes. What surprised Qin Nan was that he did not expect the bet between Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng to be so huge. 100 Xiantian pills. Senior Sister Xiao, here are your pills. The depressed Bai Heng took out a jade jar, which contained 100 Xiantian pills. Qin Nan immediately glanced at it, and saw that the Xiantian pills were 5 times smaller than the body-tempering pills. They were transparent like a drop of crystal. The qi emitted from the Xiantian pills was at least 10 times thicker than the body-tempering pills. Furthermore, Qin Nan could feel a mysterious force from the Xiantian pills. If I were to consume these 100 Xiantian pills, how many levels would the divine battle spirit improve? Qin Nan thought to himself. At this moment, Bai Heng's heart was bleeding. He stared at Qin Nan and said angrily, Qin Nan, you learned this mystical 8 steps in 10 hours. Do you want to show it to us now? I've only heard of this mystical 8 steps, but I've never seen it before. Even though his words were flawless, the suspicion in his tone was extremely obvious. Qin Nan let out a calm smile. His figure made his move without wasting any time. They could only see Qin Nan's figure turning blurry. With each step he took, his figure would change his position, before he continued to take a second step, a third step, a fourth step. Each step was different from the previous one, but each step was accompanied by a gust of wind, causing Qin Nan's figure to turn into a phantom, or a clap of thunder, or a blazing flame, making it impossible to track his movements. Qin Nan only stopped abruptly when he reached the 100th step. He was still in the same spot, as if he hadn't taken a single step. This was the mystical 8-step. This martial skill described 100 different mysterious footwork techniques. They seemed to be unrelated, but there was an invisible connection between them. As one's comprehension deepened, the number of steps one needed to take would decrease. At the highest level of cultivation, there would only be 8 steps left. As the number of footwork decreased, the power of this martial skill also increased. When Bai Heng saw this, he tactfully shut his mouth and didn't dare to say anything else. Qin Nan didn't plan to let him go. He then said with a smile, I found the bet between senior brother Bai Heng and Qingxue quite interesting. If that's the case, senior brother Bai Heng, would you like to have a bet with me? A bet with you? Bai Heng was slightly startled, and his face turned unpleasant. He hated hearing the word bet. Yes. Qin Nan said calmly, there are still 9 days left before the Xianling clan. I can practice the mystical 8 steps while I'm on my way there. I'll have a bet with senior brother Bai Heng. Let's see if I can reach the highest level of the mystical 8 steps in just 9 days. This time, not only was Bai Heng shocked, even Qingxue was shocked. Qin Nan, reaching the highest level of the mystical 8 steps in 9 days? Are you out of your mind? Even a super genius with a 10th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit would need at least a month to reach the highest level of an ultimate martial skill. And now, Qin Nan dared to say he could reach the highest level of the mystical 8 steps in 9 days? Ha! After hearing this, Bai Hing burst out laughing, junior brother Qin, as expected of a young man, full of confidence. If that's the case, I'm willing to bet with junior brother Qin. However, I bet that junior brother Qin won't be able to do it in 9 days. The bet is 100 Xiantian pills. What do you think? After saying this, Bai Heng stared at Qin Nan with sparkling eyes, hoping that Qin Nan would accept the bet immediately. Beside him, Xiao Qingxue frowned her eyebrows and said, Bai Heng, stop fooling around. Also, Qin Nan, don't accept the bet. In Xiao Qingxue's mind, Qin Nan had no chance of winning the bet. It was like giving 100 Xiantian pills to Bai Heng. Qingxue, I'm the clearest about this bet. I don't want to win, I just want to give myself some pressure. Qin Nan let out a smile toward Xiao Qingxue, and then said to Bai Heng, Senior brother Bai Heng, I don't have 100 Xiantian pills with me now. How about senior sister Qingxue be the witness, and I'll pay you back in the future? Of course, of course. Bai Heng immediately nodded his head. He was not worried that Qin Nan would go back on his words. After seeing this, Xiao Qingxue shook her head slightly. She did not say anything after seeing Qin Nan's determination. After all, 100 Xiantian pills were nothing. Alright, since the bet has started, I won't waste any more time. I'll start cultivating now. Qin Nan brought his fists together toward the two, and then executed the mystical 8 steps, moving forward 1 step at a time. Just like before, Qin Nan quickly entered a state where his mind was one with his body. Everything around him had nothing to do with him. In his eyes, there was only the mystical 8 steps. When Bai Heng saw this scene, he was not worried at all. Instead, he was incomparably excited. Even a super genius with a 10th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit could not reach the greater success stage in a month's time. No matter how talented Qin Nan is, there's no way he could comprehend it in just 9 days, right? Although Bai Heng did wonder if Qin Nan dared to speak so arrogantly because of his confidence, Bai Heng quickly dismissed the thought. However, Bai Heng soon got rid of his doubts. No matter how impressive Qin Nan was, there was no way he was capable of defying the heavens, right? Therefore, in Bai Heng's heart, he was sure that he would definitely win the bet. After thinking about how Qin Nan would owe him 100 Xiantian pills in 9 days' time, Bai Heng's gaze toward Qin Nan was no longer filled with jealousy. Instead, it was filled with admiration. For the rest of the time, Qin Nan cultivated while the three were on their way. Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng were once again shocked by Qin Nan's state of cultivation. Qin Nan was like a puppet that did not know how to feel tired, repeating the same action continuously without any sign of stopping. Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng could clearly see that Qin Nan's body was trembling due to exhaustion, but he still did not stop. This guy is like a madman. Once he starts, he will go crazy. A day passed quickly. Soon it was night time. The sky was filled with stars, and the valley was completely silent. Qin Nan's mystical 8 steps had reached the 90th step in a day. Despite that, he was still far away from the greater success stage of the mystical 8 step. All of a sudden, Qin Nan's body, which was continuously executing martial skills, came to a stop. After seeing this, Bai Heng was overjoyed. He said with a smile, Junior brother Qin Nan, there's no need to work so hard. Your cultivation is only at the 5th layer body tempering realm. You still need to rest and meditate at night. Even I can't go a whole day without rest, unless your cultivation has reached the martial emperor realm. Xiao Qingxue nodded her head slightly, and said with a gentle voice, Bai Heng is right. Qin Nan, come here and rest for a while. Although Xiao Qingxue admired Qin Nan's crazy cultivation, she did not want Qin Nan to cultivate without any restraint. If he did not rest for a whole day, it would cause great harm to Qin Nan's body, which would be detrimental to his growth in the future. Qin Nan stood in front of them without moving his body, as if he did not hear their conversation. Bai Heng's expression changed instantly, and he immediately dashed forward. If something happened to Qin Nan during his cultivation, the first person to blame would be him, who had a bet with Qin Nan. Xiao Qingshue's figure also floated forward. However, when the two arrived in front of Qin Nan, their faces were filled with astonishment once again. Qin Nan's eyes were tightly shut, and his breathing was steady. His whole body was relaxed, no different from those who had fallen asleep. However, what shocked them was that Qin Nan was mumbling to himself, as if he was talking in his sleep. Mystical 8 steps, each step is profound. Each step has its own unique meaning. Once you master these meanings, you will be able to merge them step by step and comprehend them. As Qin Nan continued to mumble, his body started to move slowly. He had started to execute the mystical 8 steps. Xiao Qingxue and Bai Heng both took a deep breath at the same time. This Qin Nan is still cultivating in his sleep? As the two were immersed in their astonishment, Qin Nan's slow movements gradually increased in speed. Each step was like a gust of wind. His figure was like a wisp of smoke drifting in the dark grassland under the starry sky, or a blazing fire surging forward. His aura was constantly changing. Xiao Qingxue recovered from her astonishment and said in a soft voice, "I finally understand why Qin Nan's martial skill comprehension is so strong. According to the rumors, there is a kind of person who is born for martial skills. When they are practicing martial skills, they will not eat or sleep. Even if the heavens and earth are destroyed, they will not be affected. This kind of person is known as the natural martial adept. I've only heard that there is a powerful senior in the Xianling clan who is a natural martial adept, but this rumor has not been proven. Who would have thought that I would be able to see a natural martial adept with my own eyes today?" After saying this, she stared at Qin Nan's back with glittering eyes. Chapter 36. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Time passed by slowly. 8 days were gone in the blink of an eye. In these 8 days, Qin Nan had been immersed in a crazed state. Eating, sleeping, etc., he kept repeating the same actions. Qin Nan had only awakened once, and that was because Qin Nan's body could no longer support Qin Nan's cultivation. He stopped because he was extremely tired. However, the time he stopped was less than the time it took for an incense to burn. Because of this, Qin Nan's mystical 8 steps had reached the 30th step. Once he executed it, his whole body would be like a gust of wind, disappearing without a trace. His speed was so fast that it would make one speechless. Because Qin Nan was a natural martial maniac, Bai Heng had been worried for the past 8 days. He was afraid that Qin Nan would accidentally master the greater success stage of the mystical 8 steps. Therefore, today, Bai Heng was completely relieved, and his face was brimming with smiles. You can't possibly shorten the 30 steps to 8 steps in a day's time, can you? Besides, the deeper the mastery of an ultimate martial skill, the harder it would be to master it. It was impossible to master it without time. Because of this, in Bai Heng's mind, Qin Nan would surely lose this time. In Xiao Qingshue's opinion, it did not matter if Qin Nan lost or not. Instead, for the past 8 days, Xiao Qingxue had been observing Qin Nan's cultivation. She did not know why, but she felt that Qin Nan, who was immersed in a crazed state, was emitting a unique charm. Qin Nan, who was moving forward while practicing his martial art, suddenly came to a stop as he panted heavily. His body was soaked in sweat, as if he was extremely tired, but his eyes flickered as he asked, "How many days has it been today? Where are we now?" Bai Heng was a legend with a good attitude. He smiled and said, "Today is the 8th day. We are not far from the Xianling clan's location. We will reach the Xianling clan tomorrow morning." It's already been 8 days. Qin Nan suddenly realized something and said, "It feels like only a moment has passed." Xiao Qingxue burst out laughing and said in an unpleasant tone, "Oh you're totally crazy when it comes to practicing martial skills. How would you know the passage of time?" Qin Nan was at a loss for words. He didn't know how to respond to Xiao Qingxue's feminine attitude. On the other hand, Bai Heng suddenly thought of something and said with a smile, "Junior brother Qin Nan, why don't we stop practicing today? Tomorrow, if he rested enough, he would be able to reach the Xianling clan. As for the bet of 100 Xiantian pills, just give me 50 of them." The reason why Bai Heng said this was because Qin Nan was a natural martial addict, and possessed an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. Therefore, he did not dare to offend Qin Nan, thus reducing the bet by 50 Xiantian pills. Furthermore, after saying this, Bai Heng felt proud of himself. Reducing the bet by 50 Xiantian pills all of a sudden, no matter what, Qin Nan would not hold a grudge against Bai Heng, right? Qin Nan let out a calm smile after hearing this and said, "Senior brother Bai Heng, I don't agree with what you just said. According to you, I'm going to lose for sure, right?" Bai Heng was stunned. He had no idea what to say. Even at this stage, Qin Nan still doesn't think he has lost? Even though Bai Heng was extremely scared of Qin Nan, he felt extremely uncomfortable at this moment. He forced a smile and said, "If junior brother Qin Nan still doesn't think he has lost, then let's continue with the training. I've never seen anyone who could achieve the greater success stage of an ultimate martial skill in just 9 days." There was a hint of sarcasm in the tone of this sentence. Qin Nan was not angry. Instead, he let out a calm smile and said, "I see. If that's the case, I'll show senior brother Bai Heng today." After saying this, Qin Nan closed his eyes, and in less than 5 breaths' time, he once again entered the state of one with the mind, as his figure executed the mystical 8 steps and started to move. After seeing this, Bai Heng's face turned dark. He could not help but let out a cold grin. "I gave you face, but you didn't take it." He would like to see how you, Qin Nan, are going to show him today. In the next moment, the grin on Bai Heng's face froze. Xiao Qingxue, who was not far away, stared with her eyes open wide. Behind Qin Nan, who had entered the state of madness, a huge martial spirit emerged from the ground and stood in midair, like a peerless emperor, looking down at the heavens and earth. Qin Nan is unleashing his martial spirit? What is he trying to do by unleashing his martial spirit? In the next moment, Bai Heng and Xiao Qingxue had an answer in their hearts. After the divine battle spirit appeared, the aura emitted from Qin Nan's body changed instantly. It became extremely mysterious. His speed doubled in less than the time it took for an incense to burn. Bai Heng and Xiao Qingxue's senses were extremely sharp. They immediately realized that Qin Nan's mystical 8 steps had leveled up, reaching the 25th step. What's going on? Bai Heng was confused. He had no idea what was going on. Not only was Bai Heng confused, even Xiao Qingxue frowned her eyebrows. She had no idea what was going on. Time passed quickly. After unleashing the divine battle spirit, Qin Nan could feel that his comprehension had increased by a few fold. Many of the questions that were previously difficult to answer were all cleared up at this moment. Not only that, it was as if the secrets of the mystical 8 steps had been completely understood, as they appeared in Qin Nan's mind. Finally, at a certain moment, Qin Nan's body stiffened. His face was filled with a sense of realization. His heart was filled with joy. I see, I get it now. The mystical 8 steps refers to the combination of 100 different movement techniques into 8 different movement techniques. These 8 movement techniques are targeted at 8 different directions. Each direction is a single step. At that instant, Qin Nan had completely comprehended the secrets of the mystical 8-step. At that instant, his whole body took a step forward and continuously changed between the 8 different directions. He was not as fast as lightning, but as elusive as a ghost. It was hard to predict and track his movements. The complete mastery of the mystical 8-step. Ah! Qin Nan burst out laughing. He stopped his movement and glanced toward Bai Heng, who was not far away, and said, "What do you think? Senior brother Bai Heng, did you learn something new today?" Bai Heng, who was not far away, finally recovered from the shock after hearing the words. However, his gaze toward Qin Nan was still as if he were looking at a deity. Qin Nan did it? Even a super genius with a 10th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit could not comprehend the greater success stage of an ultimate martial skill within 9 days, but Qin Nan did it? What kind of monster is this Qin Nan? Xiao Qingshu reacted the same way, but she was in a better state than Bai Heng. She quickly collected her thoughts and asked, "Qin Nan, what's going on? How come your comprehension improved so much after unleashing your martial spirit?" "That's because my martial spirit can help me comprehend martial skills," Qin Nan said with a smile. In fact, Qin Nan was confused at the beginning, but he was not sure about it. However, after reading Tai San's notes and learning how to achieve the greater success stage of one with the saber, Qin Nan was sure of it. If it weren't for the divine battle spirit, how could his comprehension improve at such a rapid pace? "I see." Xiao Qingshu took a deep breath and said in a serious tone, "The ability of this martial spirit is not to be underestimated. You should spend more time on martial skills when the time comes. With your talent, if you learn enough martial skills, it's not impossible for you to create a powerful martial skill yourself." Qin Nan nodded his head slightly. He understood it without Xiao Qingshu's reminder. He had been passionate about martial skills since he was young, and even created a saber art martial skill before his martial spirit was awakened. However, Qin Nan's martial spirit had not been awakened, and his cultivation was not strong enough, so the saber art he created was not powerful enough. Following this, Qin Nan glanced toward Bai Heng, who was still in a state of shock, and said with a smile, "Senior brother Bai Heng, I didn't tell you about my martial spirit before, so I'm taking advantage of you. Therefore, out of the 100 Xiantian pills, please give me 50 of them." This time, Bai Heng woke up, but the awakened Bai Heng did something unexpected. Bai Heng shook his head vigorously and said in a hurry, "No way, no way, you have to give me 100 Xiantian pills. No, 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 200 Xiantian pills, 200. Qin Nan and Xiao Qingshu were stunned after hearing this. What's wrong with this Bai Heng? Why does he have to give more Xiantian pills? Little did they know that Bai Heng was now completely subdued by Qin Nan. At that moment, Bai Heng no longer felt the pain in his heart. There was only one thought in his mind. Never go against Qin Nan, even if it meant being Qin Nan's follower or servant, never becoming Qin Nan's enemy. In other words, in Bai Heng's heart, Qin Nan had become a person of extreme respect and even fear. "That won't be necessary." Qin Nan waved his hand and said in an unquestionable tone, 50 Xiantian pills it is. Just 50 Xiantian pills is already a great deal for me. Bai Heng nodded his head like a little chick pecking rice, and immediately handed over the pills, saying, "Yep, yep, yep, whatever young Master Qin Nan says." No one realized that Bai Heng, who initially called Qin Nan trash, had now changed from junior brother Qin Nan, Mr. Qin Nan, to young Master Qin Nan. After picking up the bottle of Xiantian pills and feeling the rich qi inside, Qin Nan could not help but feel excited. At that instant, Xiao Qingshu suddenly said, "Qin Nan, you did not let me down. You will surely get a good ranking in this trial of versatility." The trial of versatility? Qin Nan's face was filled with doubts. Bai Heng immediately interrupted, "Young Master Qin Nan, The trial of versatility is a competition between the newly recruited disciples of the Xianling clan. The purpose of this competition is to allow the clan to observe the disciples' temperament and talents. It used to be held once every 3 years, but now the disciples are recruited once every 2 years, so it is held once every 2 years. The rewards of the trial of versatility every year are quite generous too. Xiao Qingxue added. I see. Qin Nan let out a smile and said, if that's the case, I would like to see what kind of geniuses the new disciples recruited by the Xianling clan are. After saying this, Qin Nan's eyes were filled with anticipation and a hint of battle intent. Only geniuses would be able to pass the trial of the Xianling clan's recruitment. When the time comes, who will be stronger and who will be weaker? Chapter 37. Geniuses remember love in 1 second divided by little? We provide you with interesting novels to read. The Xianling clan was located in the north of the Luoha kingdom, with the Tianfeng mountain as its foundation. At this moment, Qin Nan was standing at the foot of the Tianfeng mountain. In front of him stood a giant arch with a height of 50 meters. Through the arch, he could see rows of blue flagstones winding up to the top of the mountain. On top of the towering mountain peak, clouds and mist were faintly discernible. An enormous and majestic vermilion palace was faintly discernible, causing one to feel small and insignificant. This was the Xianling clan, one of the top 4 sects of the Luoha kingdom, the sacred land of martial arts that countless young disciples in the kingdom dreamed of. Even Qin Nan, who had strengthened his martial heart due to the divine battle spirit, could not help but feel excited at the foot of the Xianling clan's mountain. After joining the Xianling clan, he would be able to understand the world and step onto a broader stage. After joining the Xianling clan, he would be able to meet all kinds of geniuses and compete with them. Let's go. I believe the Xianling clan is now filled with new disciples from all over the world. Xiao Qingxue smiled, her eyes glistening. No one knew that the top beauty of the sect, who was also a top genius, was looking forward to seeing Qin Nan joining the Xianling clan. What kind of storm would he stir up? Qin Nan slightly nodded his head, and stepped through the gate with Xiao Qingxue, walking straight up the winding stone path. On the way, Bai Heng immediately explained, Young Master Qin Nan, the Xianling clan is divided into the outer disciples, inner disciples, and core disciples. Every new disciple, regardless of the level of their martial spirit, is considered an outer disciple when they join the sect. They can only be promoted after their cultivation improves. Those below the martial emperor realm are outer disciples, and those above the martial emperor realm are core disciples. As for the core disciples, they are considered the top existence of the Xianling clan. Their status is not weaker than the elders, but I don't know much about them. Qin Nan nodded slightly in amazement. As expected of one of the 4 great sects of Luoha kingdom. Just by becoming an inner disciple, one's cultivation had already reached the martial king realm. Then what kind of existence were the true disciples in the sect? Bai Heng continued, outer sect disciples usually live in the outer courtyard. Inner disciples, on the other hand, were able to open up their own cave abode. The Xianling clan was divided into several main halls. The Hall of the Leader, the Hall of Merit, the Punishment Hall, the Skill Hall, the Rare Treasure Hall, and the Hall of Life and Death. Judging from the names of the previous 5 palaces, it is easy to tell that the Palace of Life and Death is different. Qin Nan's interest was piqued. Bai Heng's eyes revealed a trace of complex emotions. He said, in the Xianling clan, infighting is forbidden. Those who violate the rules will be expelled from the clan. It is very strict. Therefore, the Hall of Life and Death was specifically designed for the disciples to settle their conflict. The only difference is that once you enter the Hall of Life and Death, it doesn't matter whether you live or die. Only when your opponent is completely dead can the battle end. Otherwise, you will be punished for violating the rules of the sect. It doesn't matter if you live or die, and it has to be the death of your opponent? Qin Nan took a deep breath. He did not expect the Hall of Life and Death to be so cruel. Once you entered, you would either live or die. Furthermore, in the Xianling clan there are 10 rules. The first rule is that infighting is forbidden. The second rule is that betrayal is forbidden. The third rule is, following Bai Heng's explanation, Qin Nan now had a basic understanding of the Xianling clan. At this moment they had also arrived at the summit of the mountain. A huge dojo appeared before Qin Nan's eyes. The dojo was made of white jade, which looked like a huge layer of ice. Under the dojo there seemed to be a huge formation in operation, causing the qi on the dojo to be a few times stronger. At that moment the huge white jade dojo was crowded with people. There were at least a few hundred people. Qin Nan instinctively glanced at the hundreds of people, and saw that there were people with luxurious outfits, simple outfits, weird outfits, etc. They all looked very young. What made Qin Nan nervous was that the auras emitted by these people were extremely powerful. Baidu Search AI Go Xiaosei www.aichux. Com Qin Nan realized that the weakest among these people had a cultivation base of the 4th layer body tempering realm, while the strongest had a cultivation base of the 10th layer body tempering realm. These are the new disciples that were recruited this year. Bai Heng lowered his voice as he looked at the group of youths. There was no arrogance in his eyes at all. Instead, there was a trace of fear. After hearing this, Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat, and he secretly smacked his lips. The Xianling clan, one of the top 4 sects, is indeed extraordinary. These new disciples are all geniuses. Bai Heng, this is all you need to do, Xiao Qingxue said. Bai Heng nodded his head. He did not show the slightest bit of displeasure. After bowing deeply toward Qin Nan, he quickly left and entered a group of majestic palaces behind the white jade dojo. Xiao Qingxue's voice turned gentle. Qin Nan, I'll accompany you there first. The elders of the association will be here personally to start the convention of versatility. Remember, don't start a fight with anyone. Leave everything to me. Qin Nan nodded his head, and followed Xiao Qingxue toward the hundreds of young disciples. At that moment, the hundreds of young disciples noticed them at the same time, and glanced toward them at the same time. Of course, their gazes were all attracted by Xiao Qingxue. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. A moment later, they finally collected their thoughts and noticed Qin Nan standing beside Xiao Qingxue. Their eyes were filled with astonishment, disdain, curiosity, pride, and many other complicated emotions, as they began to whisper among themselves. Who is this young man? Why is he accompanied by such a beauty? Humph, you're ignorant, aren't you? This is our senior sister, Xiao Qingxue, an inner disciple. Not only is she known as the top beauty of the Xianling clan, she also possesses an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit. A mid-grade martial spirit. What? This woman has an 8th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit? Heavens, not only is this woman beautiful, she also has such a martial spirit. No wonder she is the top beauty of the Xianling clan. Tisk tsk, from today onward, senior sister Xiao will be the woman of my dreams. Among the hundreds of new disciples, except for a few, almost everyone was attracted by Xiao Qingxue. How could they not be attracted by a strong and beautiful woman? Qin Nan was not unhappy. Instead, he was happy to observe the hundreds of new disciples while Xiao Qingxue was attracting everyone's attention. After observing for a while, Qin Nan's expression turned serious. From his observation, there were a total of 43 people that he needed to pay attention to. These 43 people's cultivations were all above the 6th layer body tempering realm. Not only that, Qin Nan also sensed a dangerous aura from these 43 people. It seemed like these disciples were experienced in killing. That being said, although these 43 disciples had high cultivations, the rank of their martial spirits was not necessarily higher than Qin Nan's. The reason was that the Xianling clan recruited disciples every 3 years, but this time, it was changed to every 2 years, with a gap of 3 years. Previously, due to the birth of some super geniuses, some of the top geniuses who were not selected would have their cultivations improved during the gap of 3 years. For example, Fang Rulong from Linshui City. If Qin Nan did not ask him to destroy his own cultivation, Fang Rulong's cultivation would surely improve to a certain level after 3 years. Furthermore, if there were no geniuses in Linshui City who could surpass Fang Rulong's cultivation, then Fang Rulong would be the top genius of Linshui City, allowing him to join the Xianling clan. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.